All right, I think we're live. So welcome everyone to another Maran Motoring live stream here on the Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Hope you're all doing well here this Saturday night. Thanks for joining in and being up for the different day instead of doing the Sunday live streams here. But going to be too busy tomorrow to do the live stream. So happy to have you join here tonight. And so I see we already have Jordan, Brian, FR8, Trend Car Guy, TFI, PW, Kyle, Wheatman, Adam. Thanks for joining in, everyone. Really appreciate it. Hope you're all having a great weekend here so far. So like the usual live streams, we're going to go for about 2 hours. I'll give priority answering to anyone who does a super chat or a super thanks, as well as anyone who's a member there with the green usernames. They always get priority answering. There's a link in the description if you'd like to get priority answering as well. So let's get right into the questions here. So I see FR8 says, Matt, hey buddy, are you going to review the 2024 Santa Fe XRT? Love your channel. I will be reviewing the Santa Fe. I was on the media drive this past week, and I will be posting my video hopefully on Tuesday. Again, this next week's going to be very busy for me, so I'm hoping to be able to get it live by the embargo time, which I believe is I think it's 9 a.m. on Tuesday, if I remember correctly. So Tuesday morning is when it'll be posted up. I can't talk about how it drives just yet, even though they've been on sale for like a month and so many people have already done reviews, but that's what we agreed to with the embargo. So I can say that I did drive the XRT off-road, but I don't really go over that in my video because my video is focused on the calligraphy trim. That's the one that I'll be focusing on the most. But yeah, it's and there'll be a lot of other great videos on the XRT. Me and Kurt Kreifel's paired up as drive partners, and so he did a video on the XRT that I actually helped him film. So stay tuned for his coverage on the XRT if you want to hear all the extra details on that trim in particular. But yeah, so I will refrain from talking anymore about the Santa Fe until that Tuesday video. Also, that Tuesday video, I'm trying a different style because of my compressed schedule here for this next week and the ability of Kirk, who actually offered to film for me. I'm going to do a kind of similar style to what you see on like Redline Reviews and Joe Rady's Rides channel, where you have someone following you around with a camera. Kirk actually followed me around, so the exterior is going to be like, in motion, no B-roll like I usually do, just like him following me around while I point stuff out. Same thing on the inside, no B-roll on the inside. It's just going to be me pointing at stuff and just really taking a page out of the playbook of many of those popular channels and how they do it. Obviously, I don't usually have the luxury of a cameraman, but Kirk was very kind to offer to film for me. So just want to give that a try, see how the reaction is to that. So stay tuned for that. I'll be very interested to see what the comments are like for that. Just because it was something, again, I'm really old to the Santa Fe here. I mean, or I guess I should say late to the game, because again, so many other people didn't wait for the media drive since they were at dealers and already covered that. So that's one that I figured I don't have as much to lose because I'm slightly concerned that video is going to bomb anyway. And so I'm just going to, I just figured I'd try something different. If it crashes and burns, then so be it. But so lots of interesting stuff there in the Santa Fe video. And so stay tuned for that there on Tuesday. Two, thank you so much for the super chat there. He says, welcome to the basement. Thanks for joining in too. And yeah, anyone who gets the inside joke there, anyone who doesn't get the inside joke, that's two has come up with a lot of basement lore here for of the running joke is that he and others are in the basement, my basement in particular. And so thanks for joining in too, for keeping us all laughing here during the live streams. I see a bunch of people have joined in, so thanks so much everyone for stopping by here. Sean says, how's it going? It's going well. Hope it's going well for all of you. And so getting into the other member questions here. So PK says, I hope Audi backtracks on the microtransactions after the backlash. Well, it sounds like, the US is just going to be for adaptive cruise. And there was one other thing that they said, I talked about in the weekly update. Europe is going to have all these subscription stuff. Maybe Europe will backtrack. We'll see. But as far as the US here, if you live in the US, it shouldn't be any kind of crazy microtransactions there. But Volkswagen, they keep wanting to try that stuff. And BMW was as well. And BMW learned their lesson and backtracked on trying to charge people a subscription for Apple CarPlay and heated seats and all that stuff. hopefully, I guess they all got to try it once and then, get smacked down to the basement and realize they can't do it, and then they give up maybe for a few years until they try again. Who knows? Luke says, I got done with my South Carolina delivery at 3 a.m. today. They had to get up at 6:30 to be, then had to get up at 6:30 to be an adult. So I'll stay in this as long as I possibly can. No worries at all, Luke. I appreciate you stopping by, but I totally get it. And the nice thing about these live streams, you can always join, or you can always, watch them after the fact, and at least get to partake in it a little bit, even if you can't chat too much. But totally get it, and thanks for joining in. Double Strike says, hey, Matt, happy Saturday. Thanks for joining in. Nikhil, I appreciate it. And David says, have you gotten time with the Impreza RS? I'm thinking about it for a daily commuter. I did. I reviewed the RS last year. You can check out my video for all my thoughts on it. But the Cliff Notes high-level overview is that I think it's too expensive for what it is. Now, if you can get a nice discount on it, great. But I still, and I mean, I think I'm in the minority on this. It seems like a lot of people think that the 2.5 motor is a great upgrade from the 2-liter. I personally don't think either of them are exciting. And yes, it is marginally better. Do I think it's 30 grand for an Impreza better? No, in my opinion, no. Now, again, if you can get a discount or you're buying it used or something, maybe there's something else there. But I mean, it's the same price as a Civic Si. Again, not the same thing. It's a hatch and has all-wheel drive and all that. But like, that's SI money, and an SI is a wildly better car than the Impreza RS by a long shot, not even close. So, I mean, it has its place, especially if you are fine with a CVT and you really need a hatchback and all-wheel drive. Even if you need a hatchback and all-wheel drive, I tell you to go get a Mazda 3 hatch instead. There's just so many other things. Again, Subaru has their unique appeal, and people still buy them like crazy, and there's good reasons for that. So everyone's different. But Cliff Notes would not be where I would spend my money if it were my choice. But again, everyone likes something different. Check out my review video for all the detailed thoughts on that. And I do some cross-shop comparisons as well at the end of that video if you want to hear, more well-developed thoughts on the competitors and how it stacks up. And Luke says, much less editing involved, I assume, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's insane. I mean, for me, it's still taking a little bit longer because I still am doing B-roll for the driving portion because that portion will be normal. But yeah, it's literally no editing basically with the one take stuff. It's just as long as we had to do a couple of cuts because again, it's my first time doing this and the first time, Kirk doing this for me and filming and, all that. So, there's a couple of cuts, but literally the first, like the exterior and the interior, which usually takes me, at least 4 hours, typically, took me maybe half an hour tops. So it's a lot better. And this is how, a lot of these channels are able to do daily uploads and do full reviews every single day because it's all one take. And when you do it like that, yeah, you can get your editing done in an hour, and it makes life a lot easier. So, there's talk, if this goes over well with the Santa Fe video, that maybe we can try and carve out some time for Beth to be able to, take a break from being a stay-at-home mom for an hour or so and come out and start doing that, at least for the press cars. And then maybe someday, once our daughter's in school, maybe she can come along on press trips and do it for those videos as well. So it's going to be, if this actually is something people want to see more of, it'll be very intermittent. I'll do it when I can because it certainly, again, makes my life much easier and is a great way to, again, kind of make things a little easier from a workload standpoint. So hopefully we'll see how it does. I also may swap cameras because I used my Insta360 for that. Not the best choice, but that was just what I had at the moment since it was kind of a spur of the moment choice to do it that way. In the future, I'll probably either swap to my iPhone or probably get a new GoPro or something that's a little bit better video quality. So, don't judge the video quality too harshly as far as, the actual, HDR stuff and all that. It's not the best, but hopefully, like I said, I'm very curious to see what the comments are like on Tuesday's video. And Jeremy says, does YouTube charge more fees if I super chat? If super chat is from iOS? I think the fees should be all the same. I'm no expert though, but I don't think they really do anything different between iOS and Android as far as that stuff is concerned, to my knowledge, but I could be wrong. And Luco says, my aunt needs a vehicle with low ground clearance for her aging dog to get in and out of. I recommended a previous gen Honda HRV with the magic seats. The dog would have that flat floor. That's great. Yeah. I mean, and anything else that's just a regular hatchback, should be okay too. So Civic hatch is a great choice. Honda Fit is a great choice. That's a little bit older, but and because the HRV is still a little higher off the ground. I mean, it's probably a little bit better with the Magic Seat thing, but if she can deal with the regular hatch, there's a lot of choices there. Impreza is another great one, and so yeah. And let me see. SMD says, "Hey Matt, how's it going? Have you had any experience in dream car giveaways? They seem too good to be true." I think they're a legit company. I haven't looked into them, so I can't say for sure. But I mean, there's a lot of giveaway companies. A lot of them, even if they seem too good to be true, it's typically just that they are really good money making things for the companies, and that's why they keep doing them. And I mean, I've even had companies reach out to me that have wanted to like partner up, where they like wanted me to promote their giveaways, and I'd get a cut of it. It's like a whole business thing, but it's just, I don't love like pushing sales all the time. And honestly, it doesn't do very well, to be totally honest, even with the other commercials and ads that I do before videos. It's very usually hardly anyone actually clicks through and purchases any of the items or anything. It's just mostly about building awareness for that brand. And that's what I tell brands up front. I'm like, look, don't count on anyone to buy this product just because I'm showing it in a video. Like, it's just about raising the awareness. And that's why some of my best partnerships are with brands like Shell and things like that, where, just like Shell's just happy to get their name on the channel. They don't, they're not expecting anyone to go and like use my discount code to buy gas or anything. It's just like, hey, we're Shell. Here's what we're doing. The end, things like that. Those are usually the best ones. So dream car giveaways, I don't know, but I think, that's obviously there are a lot of YouTube channels make a ton of money off of those giveaways that they do. So I think most of them are fairly legit. It just, you have to realize it's just another way to, sell t-shirts and other crap that most people normally would not buy anyway. It's a really clever way to get people to buy junk that most of the time they wouldn't buy. And Jazz says, so you were not in Palm Springs for Lincoln, not good for your channel, or didn't have time, or not invited, or all three? Lincoln does not invite me. Ford is really tough with a lot of people, even people who deserve to be at things oftentimes aren't. My channel, again, if you look at the view counts, I can't blame anyone for not inviting me for anything, to be totally honest. But yeah, Lincoln doesn't invite me to anything. Funny enough, I haven't gotten a Lincoln press car since 2016. I did do a Navigator, but that was just because I was doing the AVA event with a bunch of other journalists, and that's why the Lincoln was available there. But I haven't had anything since 2016 because Lincoln got upset that I compared the MKX to the Edge. Even though I said in the video, like, I would rather have the MKX, and if you have the extra money, buy the MKX. Like, I was upselling, saying like, get the MKX, but the fact that I even mentioned the word Edge upset them. And apparently, I mean, they didn't say like you're blacklisted or anything, but I've asked for Lincolns in the past, have never gotten a Lincoln since 2016. So, I mean, we're going on 8 years now, and haven't been invited to any press events ever for them. I've only been to one Ford event in my entire life as well, GT500, and that was it. Another one, I said nothing but good things about the GT500, had a great time. I mean, I'll always be honest, but that one was one that there weren't any faults in my opinion, really. But no reason for them to be upset at me for that, and then never got a Ford thing after that either. That video actually did decently too, views wise, but Ford and Lincoln, it seems like they're very fickle with who they invite, and oftentimes it is based on how hot you are at the current point in time. And my channel is not a hot channel by any means as far as views, growth, anything like that. So I can totally understand why they don't invite me. I'm not upset about it, but that's why I didn't go on the Nautilus thing. And thanks for joining in, Tony there. And Double Strike says, weird random thought. Not sure if you know the King of Prussia Mall in Central PA, but it's got insanely high-end stores. You can spot some nice cars there. Saw my only Lucid Air there. Nice. There's actually a Lucid. We just saw it last night coming home from dinner. There's one of those nice like burgundy maroon color ones around here that rolls around, and it's quite a sight, especially at night. Yeah, we have some high-end stores at our local mall as well, that every once in a while, if I park near where those entrances are for those stores, I can see some interesting stuff, parked out there. Nothing super crazy. King of Prussia is certainly a little more prestigious than our mall here, but we do have a lot of people coming from out of state because we have the Louis Vuitton stores and the Gucci stores and all that kind of stuff that you don't see in the average mall typically. And two, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, speaking of Shell, yep, Shell and Shell, one of the same. Let me see. And Trend Car Guy says, so my coworker recently bought a manual RSX and I've been helping him learn how to drive manual. Looking forward to actually seeing it once he brings it. That's awesome. The RSX is such a good car. I reviewed one a long time ago. But man, that thing was so fun. And a car I always loved even as a kid when they first came out. Or as a teenager, I guess I should say. I think I was 13 when they came out. But they're really, really cool. And that's a name I'd love to see them bring back. Obviously, any sport compact thing would, get me excited. Like, that's why I'm super hopeful that we actually see a production Prelude soon. But RSX is awesome. I'm glad your buddy was able to grab one. Hopefully it was a nice clean one. I feel like I couldn't tell you the last time I actually saw an RSX on the road. It's gotta have been at least 3 or 4 years, because it's been a long time since I've seen an RSX. Thanks for joining in, Wild Frames. Luke also says, I drive past that Lucid store on some of my trucking adventures at King of Prussia. Used to be a Toys R Us, and it's about 15 minutes from my grandparents' house. Nice. And Wild Frames, thank you so much for a super chat. And he says, as automotive journalists, how much do you value video cameras in the style of filming, and how can this elevate your content? Do you believe visuals are as important as content these days, and your vision? I've always tried to do a nice balance between like something that is visually appealing, so it's not, uncomfortable to watch, but also something that I'm not pulling my hair out trying to make amazing documentaries like Savage Geese. And I mean, those guys go through so much stress and they work so hard. And I don't have enough skill to even attempt to do anything close to Savage Geese quality, but just if I really wanted to pour my heart and soul into the videography thing, it really wears on you. And YouTube is not a platform that has ever really valued production quality. It never has. And I think these days, with it going more and more TV style and more channels, especially larger channels, having these higher production values, I think people are slowly starting to expect higher production value out of YouTube, but YouTube still does not reward it. And especially as we see everything going towards short form, where everyone is literally using their selfie camera, forward-facing garbage 720p quality camera to film the vast majority of content on TikTok and YouTube Shorts and stuff. Where does production value fit in there? So I think on YouTube, there's still a place on the horizontal long form stuff. But look at Doug DeMuro, not to throw any shade at him, but I mean, he literally was filming with like an iPhone 4 forever on a tripod. I mean, again, his stuff is wildly popular and it's for a good reason. I mean, he obviously knows what he's doing. He's a very smart guy, but he didn't invest in any kind of, high quality video or anything. He could have, at his size, he could have hired a bunch of videographers and had Throttle House style visuals if he wanted, but he chose not to. And I think I kind of, did the same approach even before Doug was doing videos of just like churning it out as consistently as I can, doing something that's, good enough, that, serves the purpose, but isn't going to win any awards or anything. And I'm okay with that. Because I'm not a super creative person from a visual standpoint, to be totally honest. So like, I really enjoyed doing the intros back whenever I, had a more relaxed schedule and could spend hours editing a cool 30-second thing to dubstep music and all that. But, these days it's, these are educational videos primarily. They're, a little entertaining as well, but it's really about just trying to clearly demonstrate what I'm talking about and do it in a way that is, again, visually appealing, but, I'm not trying to get any kind of Oscars or anything. So, I think, though, that it is something you can't overlook it these days. You do have to make sure you have decent stuff. And like my consideration this year that I think as far as visual appeal that I'm looking to upgrade is really going to probably try and work towards going to 4K for everything. Now, the weekly updates are already in 4K. But even these live streams, I'd like, they're just 1080p. I'd like to, find a way to get these up to 4K. And also, even though, again, you're just looking at me, so I guess you don't really need high quality, even if you're watching on a TV. But YouTube's really been saying recently that like a lot of people are watching YouTube on TV more and more than ever before. So that makes me think that 1080p for my regular car reviews probably isn't cutting it anymore. Especially if you're on a big TV, it probably doesn't look amazing. So that's something that, I for a while I kind of pushed off the 4K because the consensus was that everyone's watching on their phones and you're never going to really truly appreciate 4K quality compared to 1080p on your little smartphone screen or even an iPad screen for that matter. So that's why I was kind of always dragging my feet on that, because to do 4K well, at least in my opinion, it's thousands of dollars for good gear. And so that's kind of why I dragged my feet for a while. But I think this year I'm going to, whether it's just even doing more iPhone footage or just finding other ways, I still want to retain the 60 frames per second, because that's the one unique thing that I think I do that a lot of other channels don't do, where they're shooting in 24 frames or 30 frames per second. I think the 60 frames does add some visual immersion that you can get more of even on any device. You can see 60 frames on phones, tablets. I thought that was something that was actually more tangible and more appreciable than 4K, honestly. But now with the increase of TV stuff, I think I need to stick to the 60 frames, but also go up to 4K here. So that's something I'll be working on for my car reviews this year, assuming I continue to do car reviews for the rest of the year, because, we will see. But if things continue the way they are, then I'm not going to invest tons of money into cameras if the channel's just going to be something that I'm going to, go part-time or walk away from, in a year or so, who knows. But so that's kind of my position on visual appeal on channels. And I think that, any general advice for other, channels out there that are people who want to start channels, try and make it good quality, but I wouldn't obsess over it. It's more about your personality. Anyone on YouTube will tell you it's about your personality. It's about what you're talking about, your story. If you're a good storyteller and you're, good in front of a camera, that's going to matter way more than what you're filming with. So I think that's really the bottom line. But thank you so much for the super chat, Wild Frames. And getting back to the other member questions here. Let me see. Sean's asking, is there any chance to review a Cybertruck? I have not had anyone reach out to offer a Cybertruck to me. I know it's like the super hot thing right now. I personally have zero interest in reviewing one myself either. But if someone offers me one, I will totally review it, because, again, it's an important vehicle. And I, again, will approach it with an open mind and put my own reservations and biases aside and just, do an objective review on it. But it's not something I'm actively seeking out. And if I don't ever drive a Cybertruck, I will be okay with that. But we'll see. And Double Strike says, I'm just excited for cars and coffee to start back up. All the local car club members run and hide when the snow comes out. I know it's a bummer for sure. I wonder if there's a market though for like, a gathering during the cold months, that's, even if it's smaller or something, I feel like that could be a worthwhile thing to still do, maybe not weekly, but, every other week or once a month or something during the winter, and have an alternate, kind of gathering for us people who aren't afraid of the snow and, don't take our car collecting that seriously. And SMD says, I've never been a Lincoln guy. My dad had a 93 Continental and I would steal it and drive around the block and had the number pad on the door to lock and unlock it. That's cool. Yeah. And they still do that. Like our Mach-E still has the number pad thing on the door. They still are sticking with that. We've never used it or anything. It's just, I think we set it up, but it's like, it's not something, I don't even know the code for it or whatever. But it's funny that that's something that still only Ford and Lincoln do. It's really funny. But Continentals were great, especially back then. Wild Frame says, Savage is good, but not as good as you think in terms of video making. You can learn the same thing in like 2 to 3 months. I don't know. I feel like they have a very, I'm trying to think of the word, but like they really have an eye for good stuff. I mean, like the usual car stuff, is not something that they obsess over as much as far as the quality goes. But I feel like their documentaries and stuff, I mean, there's some real top-notch stuff, at least in my opinion. I guess everyone's got different standards, but I've always been super impressed when I watch a Savage Geeks video about how good their stuff is. And he says he agrees that the critical content is more important than the visuals. Let me see. Double Strike says, Matt, really recommend used photo and video gear. You can save a massive amount. Yeah, my last camera I did get refurbished, and then but I've looked like some of the cameras I'd like to have, like even used ones or refurbished ones, like they're still expensive. Like cameras hold their value really well. And especially with how, I mean, I guess it depends on which one you get, as far as whether you get one that's been lightly used or more heavily used. But I mean, like I use my camera like daily pretty much. And, it's a lot of wear and tear and throwing it in backpacks and flying all across the country with it and everything. I mean, it has a lot of abuse. I mean, I just use a Panasonic G85, far from fancy, but I got to say that little thing has held up. and knock on wood, continues to hold up really well. It's been, I think, actually about 5 years for that camera now, or almost 5. And that little thing, I mean, it's been out in the rain, snow, freezing cold, super hot. I think it's maybe overheated once ever, and it's never frozen up. I mean, it's really, I mean, I gotta definitely take my hat off to Panasonic. They make good cameras, in my opinion. But I'd love to upgrade to something higher end at some point, just that does good 4K 60 frames per second. Because this thing can do 4K, but it drops down to 30 frames, and it's not the best. So gonna have to upgrade video here at some point. But Frames also says, I think it depends what makes you happy. Also, Mark loves making videos. He's saying that many times. Cars are after that. So yeah, it depends on the person. Yeah, totally agree. But I know they're burned out as well. I've talked to Mark and Jack, on a lot of events. We got to hang out a lot last year, and I mean, they're really burned out as well. So it takes a toll for sure. And this is why the people that churn out daily videos, their quality is not nearly that high, because it's just, that's the trade-off you make. Let me see. Raphael says, I made it, wasn't sure I'd get home in time. Thanks for joining in, Raphael. Luke says, I'm going to get made fun of and don't care. I want a Honda Ridgeline at some point. Nice bed with the trunk, smooth ride, decent V6, not horrible fuel economy. I love Ridgelines. And I mean, if you watch my Ridgeline reviews, I've said it in both the reviews, and I'll have the the refresh 2024 here, I think in a month or two. They're really good. And I think, and I've said this so many times, and so basically every journalist says the same thing. If most truck buyers are honest with themselves, the Ridgeline is enough truck for, I'd say, at least 75% of the truck buying public out there, who just use them as small crawlers and tailgate vehicles and, light hauling. I mean, go look at your local Walmart parking lot. Look at all the pristine trailer hitches on trucks and stuff. I mean, there are people that use them. I'm not saying that no truck buyer actually uses their truck properly. Obviously, there's a bunch that do, especially off-roading and stuff being more and more popular these days. But, the Ridgeline is, I think that, you could swap at least half of all the trucks on the road with Ridgelines, and people would actually be happier than they are with their current truck. Again, if they were honest with themselves and were okay with the unibody thing and all the other mental holdups that people have. But people choose crappier rides, crappier features and livability just because they want something that's, I guess, can do more theoretically, even if they never actually use that. It's the American way, is being over prepared and having more capability than you need. Frame says 60 is more live, 24 is usually more cinematic in terms of how the footage looks. Right. Yeah. And I mean, I used to do 30 frames, and even I think I went down to 24 for a couple of videos just to try it. Because again, that cinematic thing I was kind of going for with my intros in the past and things like that. But I really like the 60. I think it kind of adds an extra dimension, in my opinion. Mike says, Matt, can you say the month that the Camry press drive is? Well, I'll just repeat what I have seen elsewhere, and that is spring. So I can say that. Again, it's really not that big of a deal. I don't want to step on any toes. But I'll just, it's going to be spring, and you won't have to wait very long. I will just say that. So, it's not going to be, like the last day of spring or anything. So just, it will be coming fairly soon. And yeah, hopefully that'll be a good video. We'll see. It's going to be the Toyota event is going to have like a bunch of different stuff all at the same time. So it's going to be a lot of filming in a few days. So the Camry's one of many things we'll be driving, and it's going to be busy, but Camry should be good. I'm looking forward to it. Brianna says, would you and Beth prefer an X7 or an iX? I can't stand the looks of the iX, but I also don't love the looks of the X7, but I guess my eyes burn less when I look at an X7 compared to an iX. So I guess I'd say X7, even though Beth would probably like the driving experience of the iX better because of the EV thing. But if it's something I had to walk out and see it in my garage every day, I guess X7 gets the easy pick, but I wouldn't pick either of those if I had any other options whatsoever. And Jordan, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, why do you think automakers are backpedaling on EVs? Well, I mean, the short answer is that they're seeing slowing demand. It's still growing, by the way, even though, again, everyone likes to, all the other media outlets and everyone who's eager for it to fail, like to run with the stories that it's not, that they're, dying off. They're not. They have every single month last year, they sold more than every single same month the year prior. January was a huge jump up. I think that Ford said they sold like 80% more EVs or something in January. And I thought February was also really strong. So all these reports about like, oh, no one wants EVs, like they're still really hot sellers. A lot of them are selling really quickly still, especially now with those price discounts. It's just we're finally getting back to what Americans have been wanting for a long time, which is no special ordering, no markups, discounts. It's like people see a bunch of Lightnings on the lot and they're like, oh no, no one wants a Lightning. But then what about the 30 F-150 regular F-150s on the lot? And what about the 30 Dodge Rams on the lot? Like that was the norm for America. And Ford finally caught up with demand and they're like, hey, look, here's what everyone wants. They want to have everything in, one of each color, one of each option package. Take your pick and drive it home today. Don't order, don't have to wait, because Americans don't want to wait for anything. Just show up, sign a paper and drive away. And so now there's finally dealer inventory, and yes, Mach-E's aren't selling super great, and they're compensating with lowering prices, which was also part of just the price war with Tesla and stuff. But so I think that there is some slowing demand, and I think car companies are just being super conservative, and I think also car companies, they're scared of this transition as well. I think they want to do the transition and a lot of them are excited for it, but this is a massive amount of money. And a lot of them, I think, are really nervous from a financial standpoint, because if for some reason the entire world unanimously decides to turn on a dime and not care about the reasons why we're doing the EV switch, then they're all going to be in bad shape. I mean, like, you can't invest hundreds of billions of dollars and then just write that off and continue on. Like, these companies are, most of them are putting their entire livelihood on the line, and it's big risks. I mean, never in the history of the car has a company had to invest this much money, even when you adjust for inflation. They've never had to make this kind of a risk or this kind of a leap. It's always been, hey, look, let's give it a few more horsepower. Let's jazz up the looks. Let's put a new screen in, a bigger screen in. Let's give it whatever. That's been the case for the entire 120 years of the automobile or whatever. It's always just been incremental little new things, keep people coming in for a new one every few years. That's all it took. It was easy. It was a low ball, underhanded softball thing. It wasn't, obviously there's companies that, tried and failed at, making new cars and breaking into the industry and things like that. But, for established companies, there's never really been a big risk. The biggest thing you could say is the recession from 2008. And even that was just because companies got careless and they got bloated, and, GM had 5 different redundant brands that all had the same vehicle, that kind of stuff. But, aside from that, there's never really been a real challenge like we're facing these days. And I think that's why, like, at the slightest hint of, demand slowing down, they're like, oh no, maybe we should slow down, maybe we should bail. And especially then when you have the legislation coming in that's potentially changing, and who knows what happens in November and how that could slow things down for the US in particular. All these things are making them, they're all just super scared, and they're just they're like cats, that you can't spook them. You gotta just, if anything crazy happens, they take off running and and hide behind their piles of cash. But it's just, they'll have to wait and see if things, market conditions and governmental conditions and all that stuff, again, globally, not just in the United States, but if globally things really significantly change, then that's, I think they're just preparing for the worst. And the easy thing is, they can always go back and be like, oh, actually, we are still going to go full throttle. And a lot of the companies have said, we've anticipated this slowdown. Everyone knew that it was going to be the same as tech, where you have early adopters that buy everything right away. And you would see this every year with Apple, with the iPhone. You can't get an iPhone for 3 months or 2 months. Everyone's pulling their hair out trying to get one before Christmas, or they're standing in line and everyone's up at 3 a.m. to place an order online and all this kind of stuff. And then guess what? I just saw an ad the other day for one of the phone carriers. They're giving you a free iPhone 15, a free iPad, a free Apple Watch, free AirPods, all on us just to switch. They don't offer that on November 1st or on October 24th or whenever the iPhones come out every year. But then it's like, okay, we got all the early adopters. They paid their premiums to be the first ones in the fall. Now we got to convince the people that are on the fence, or the people that don't care that much, and make it make sense financially. So let's give them discounts. Let's throw free stuff at them. It's the same exact thing. We're just in the phase now where it's not the hot thing anymore. And you need to now convince people with incentives and deals. It's, this is a very predictable thing for a lot of products. And so why people can't see this clearly and everyone thinks that this is like the collapse of the EV market, or that this is like the end of, this whole transition or something like this, people knew this was coming. And, obviously a lot of companies were hoping that things would really accelerate and we wouldn't have this slowdown. But most companies, they said they anticipated this. This was something that was always kind of baked into the plan. And this is why Toyota and Honda and others weren't diving headfirst into EVs, because they knew it was going to be slow. So they said, okay, we'll start off with, one or two. We'll meet people where they're at with plug-in hybrids, whatever, because they knew that this wasn't going to be something that happens overnight. And, they kind of were happy to let, all the early adopters go and run off to the other various brands, because they knew that the still large chunk of the market was going to still want the normal gas-powered stuff. And, they weren't sweating it. So, again, long-winded answer, but it's something I'm really passionate about, because I see so much crap online that's just downright either just wrong or just misguided, or again, just people not looking at the full context of what's going on here. And I mean, that's just my take on it. Again, I'm sure everyone has other opinions, and it's been very politicized and made into this polarizing thing, unfortunately. But, you just have to look at any other hot product and look at what it does over the course of a year. And, it's no surprise. It's just the way things go, in my opinion. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. But Jordan, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, do you see potential in hydrogen for cars? Well, this one I'll keep a lot shorter. No, I don't see potential for hydrogen for a long time. First, hydrogen is really hard to extract efficiently. It's the most abundant source on Earth, but you can't just like go and open a tap to collect hydrogen. Like, it is a very intense process, very energy intensive, by the way, too. So it's not very green, honestly, right now either, to actually do hydrogen the way that it is in its current state. Now, if it becomes easier to produce hydrogen in the future, then that could change. But again, there's no investment in that right now. All the battery stuff is the new gold mine, and electricity is the new oil. So hydrogen there's nothing about it that gives it an advantage really over EVs, especially with EV tech evolving as fast as it is. Yes, you can refuel hydrogen, but where are you going to refuel it? There's even in California, I think they're down to like 50 odd stations, and only like I think 30 of them usually work consistently. And that's California. The rest of the country, I think, has like another 20 or something. I think New York's got a couple. There's so few, compared to, I mean, people say there's not enough EV charging stations. We have like over 30,000 of those already. Imagine having less than 100. And then, there's no investment. Shell just pulled out their investment for hydrogen. They're not putting up any new stations. There's only a few companies that have cars that, can even do it. And it's just, there's nothing, everyone wants more and more investment in all these things, but hydrogen is just so far off right now that there is no way it's viable. For me, I don't think there's any way in the next 10 to 15 or 20 years. And especially, I think, as EV stuff evolves, it's going to make hydrogen even more irrelevant. I don't see a future for hydrogen. I think hydrogen could be cool, but it's super inefficient to burn. Like Toyota's trying to, play around with burning hydrogen. That involves having a tank of hydrogen that takes up the entire backseat and the entire hatch area. Who's going to do that? None of these things are even remotely close to being consumer friendly. And that would, again, even be assuming, it's just, you got to get the car tech there, you got to get the fueling tech there, and both of them are so far away that I feel like hydrogen is like the thing we're going to be talking about maybe in 50 years or something, maybe. But I feel like EV is really going to just be the way, because it's so easy to generate electricity with solar and wind and hydro, and it just so many reasons why I think that EV will be, the future for a long time. I don't see hydrogen making any sense financially, realistically. It just, maybe in the commercial sector, there could still be something there for planes, boats, things like that. But I mean, again, who wants to fly in a plane that's filled with hydrogen? I know it's not much better with jet fuel, but I mean, there's that whole stigma as well and things like that you have to overcome, assuming again everything else lines up. So, I think it's why I think there's a lot of problems, with just getting hydrogen to a good point, honestly. And thank you again, Jordan, for the super chat. Raphael, thank you so much for a super chat as well. He says, Camry TRD weekend in mind, coming home from work yesterday with a gray one next to me and a Supra behind us. Get sushi today and pass a white one. Nice. It's like you were in a Toyota commercial yesterday with the Supra and Camry TRD. That's cool. Yeah, I see a decent amount of them around here as well. They always sound so good because they usually have an exhaust on them as well that makes them louder and it's good stuff. So Camry TRDs are great. And Zachary, thank you so much for joining the Matt Maran Motoring Club. I really appreciate it. And I will keep an eye out if you have any other member questions here. But I'm going to get back to the other member questions as well. And let me see where we left off here. Daniel says, I've never found myself wishing your video quality and camera gear was better. Well, thank you. I'm glad it's been good, for you and hopefully for most others. I appreciate the feedback, though. That's good to hear. And SMD, I appreciate that as well. Daniel says, were you surprised to see your Ram and Tacoma videos do so well since you mostly do enthusiast content? Absolutely. I was really shocked, especially for Ram, because the last Ram video didn't do super well. But yeah, I'm really happy it did well. The Tacoma one was a funny one because my original review video still has done horribly, which I really put a lot of work into that video. That was 3 days of editing for that one. But then the Little Week with video just decided to, get 25,000 views or whatever. And I'm very appreciative of that, but it's so funny. It doesn't make any sense. The little video that took me, 10 minutes to film pretty much, it was really kind of a simple video, just did better, but maybe that's the way to go going forward. PK, thanks for being a member for 2 months now. I really appreciate it. He says, what do you think of Volvo? They are so forgetful and I don't know what their place is in the market. So I think Volvo, their place to me is they are still the safest thing out there, from a crash standpoint in particular. They've put some of the oldest Volvo models through like the brand new IHS tests that weren't even a thing back when these Volvos are being engineered, and like they always pass the flying colors still for the most part. And I mean, Volvo, Mercedes, and I think there's, one or two others that do their own like safety requirements in-house that are much higher than the governmental stuff. And it's always just like so mind-blowing just to see how, usually Volvos hold up so well. I think their goal actually, I think they said by 2030 was to have 0 deaths in a Volvo. I mean, they're pretty close already. I think there was only 1 or 2 in the past year. I mean, also the kind of buyer that drives a Volvo is probably more safety minded and therefore will be a safer driver. So there's some stuff helping them out there, but I mean, they're also just very safe vehicles. So I think that's their place. And I mean, that's like, in my mind, like if, my daughter wants a first car someday, I mean, obviously we'll see there's lots of other stuff that's safe, but like, Volvo would be like, yeah, like that's great. Beth really likes Volvos. And I also love the idea of them as a family vehicle, because again, that safety is really paramount. Even if the other things in the Volvo might not be the best. And as far as place in the market outside of, just the safety thing, I think they're also just for someone who wants something different, if everyone in your neighborhood's got a 3 Series, has a C-Class, has an A4, the Volvo is just a little more unique. I mean, I see a decent amount of them around here, so I wouldn't call them rare or anything, at least, again, around here. But, in a lot of places, they are more rare. And even around here, I could probably see 1 Volvo S60 for every 10, 3 Series I see in a day or something, so I think that's really the thing, is it's just something different that stands out. Same as, that's one of the appeals of Alpha and all the other, Jags, things like that. It's just having something different. It probably isn't better in most cases, but just, so you're not another 3 Series, another, C-Class, things like that. And Wild Frames, thank you so much for the super chat. He says EVs don't collapse. They are just pushing it artificially too hard. In 5 years, we'll have cheap city EVs for 25 to 30 grand, and everyone will be happy. Yeah, I think there's definitely gonna be a lot of that. I think the VinFast VF3 is gonna be great. They're saying that could be potentially a 20 grand vehicle, at least to start. I mean, it's gonna be tiny. It's gonna have probably 100 miles of range or something. But whenever you're talking about something, once you get cheap enough, again, there's a lot of people that I think over half the people they surveyed recently in a recent car buying thing that someone did, their survey suggested that about half of all new car buyers are considering an EV. It's just that they're too expensive. So once you bring that price point down, again, for people they want a cheap 20 grand thing to commute back and forth to work in. That's it. It's a second or a third car. We're not talking about a one car thing that does everything for everyone. Just how it is in Europe, a city car for city driving, short trips. You don't need a ton of range. I think, if they're cheap enough, like the VinFast and others, I think, yeah, that once we get that cheap stuff, the new Bolt or whatever that, hopefully comes will be around that price point. A lot of companies are working on that. Ford's working on their own cheap thing. Tesla's working on a cheap thing. Once you have those, and again, you tell people you never have to do an oil change ever again. Your brakes last you, a long, long time, way longer than a gas vehicle. The only thing is tires. You potentially have to replace a little more frequently, but everything else is like, how many people hate doing oil changes and hate, filling up their car with gas? If you say you have a full tank of gas every day in your garage, you never have to deal with a creepy gas station late at night ever again. You never have to deal with, having to stand outside in the cold and pump gas every week, in the middle of the winter and stuff. Like, if you tell people they don't have to do that stuff anymore, like, they will happily jump over. Again, people who don't have biases about wanting loud sounds from their cars or whatever, just the average consumer that just wants a good appliance. EVs are just good appliances for the most cases. And that's what we love about our Mach-E. It's a good family car. It's just a good thing to safely get everyone around town in. I'm not expecting it to excite me. I'm not expecting it to blow my mind with driving dynamics or anything. It's just a good baby hauler. And for a lot of people, that's all they need and want, and they just want something to drive their parents around in, or they want something to just get them back and forth to work in silence and comfort. And that's it. So yeah, I think I think some companies got a little over eager and thought that things were going to switch faster than it did. And now they're just realizing that, it all comes down to price still. And I think it's also I think the EV thing is bigger than the EV thing with the slowdown in sales. I think it's an indication that there's only so many people that are actually able to buy these expensive cars. We've been seeing these just car prices in general ballooning over the past year. The average new car price, I think, got over $50,000 last year. And I think we're just finally seeing the end of that. Like, there's only so many upper middle class people that are dropping 50 grand on new cars every year. I think we've kind of burned through a good chunk of that, and you've reached the limit there. Where there's same thing with the $100,000 trucks. Like, there's only so many people that can keep buying $100,000 trucks, and companies are churning out more and more of them, and they're very impressive. Again, I was just in the Ram Tungsten, last a few weeks ago. That was one of those 89, or was it 90 grand for that? There's not that many American. I mean, yes, there's a good amount of Americans that, can afford that. I think there's actually like over 1 million millionaires in the United States now or something. But I mean, in car sales volume, 1 million is not that much. So, whenever, we have F-150 selling what did they sell? 600,000 trucks last year or something, so you exhaust even the millionaires pretty quick. And you can't keep selling these insanely expensive vehicles. There's a giant amount of people whose wages are not keeping up with inflation, whose wages are not keeping up with rising housing costs, and they can't afford the basics. There's that segment sadly is growing. And so those people are not going to be able to keep affording these expensive cars. And so I think that what we're seeing with the EV thing is just an early symptom that the expensive truck market will collapse, in my opinion. And I mean, I'm not saying it's going to go to zero, but I think that you're going to see, they're going to kind of get ahead of themselves with that and be like, oh wait, maybe we can't build tons of $100,000 trucks for everyone, and realize that, hey, maybe not everyone can afford $80,000 SUVs anymore, and kind of slow down. I think the luxury market is overdue for a slowdown in and of itself. Mercedes is saying we're going to keep going up market more and more and more, and just make more and more expensive stuff and higher profit margins. That's what we learned through COVID, was high profit margins is the way to go, and sell less vehicles. But then they just ignored the giant majority that still need cars, but aren't going to pay some high profit, high end vehicle. And so I think that that's what we're seeing. Is it's not an EV thing. I think it's going to be a general thing we'll see of just everything luxury just kind of shrinking up as it gets less and less important if things don't improve quickly enough with wages and stuff, which I think we'll see corporate greed continue to do its thing. And we will just see the working class continue to get put through the ringer more and more. So yeah, man, I'm on my soapbox instead. I apologize, everyone. I'll get back to the member questions here, but lots of very passion-inducing questions here tonight. And thanks for all the great questions, everyone. Let me see, though. Getting back to the member questions here. Where was I? So Trent Car Guy says, my truck driving instructor had a Ridgeline and loved it. He's an artist and does tattoos on the side. Very cool. Yeah, one of my best friends has a Ridgeline as well. He loves it. He's driven it across the country, and he's really happy with his Ridgeline. I think they're really great. SMD says, Matt, you have $7,000 cash and need a reliable daily sedan, preferably and sporty as possible with that budget. What do you recommend? $7,000. That is tough. I would have to, really search some of the stuff that's coming into my head to see, where that stuff has landed price-wise. If I'm looking for something that's a daily, that's reliable, I'm looking at basically just the Japanese brands, especially if you're talking something $7,000. There's very few things that are $7,000 that aren't Japanese that have a long life ahead of them. So I would probably say as old of a Mazda 6 as you need, or Mazda 6 or Mazda 3 you need to get to $7,000, because the Hondas and the Toyotas will hold their value more, but the Mazdas seem to be pretty much just close to it, just as reliable. Maybe not as reliable, but close, while still sometimes feeling a little sportier, a little higher quality, as far as the interiors and stuff, even at those older ones. And if it was $7,000 and it had to be a sedan, I'd probably go for something like that. If it was a coupe and you just needed 4 seats, I'd go Scion TC because it's awesome styling. I always had a soft spot for the TC, so that was the first one that jumped in my mind before I read the sedan part of your question. But that's Toyota underpinnings, of course. So super reliable forever. But as far as sedans, I'd probably go Mazda 3 if that's big enough for you for that. Even the first gen of the Mazda 3, whenever they switched over from the Protege or whatever in the early or mid 2000s there, you might be able to get a newer one that for around $7,000. I'm not sure, but that would probably be my best recommendation. Great question. MD Can says, howdy, Matt. Wasn't expecting the Saturday stream, but I guess that's what happens when I forget to watch the weekly update. Yeah, I tried to warn everyone yesterday, but I totally totally understand if people missed the memo. And I just had to do a Saturday one this week, but I'll be back to a Sunday one next week for sure. And Luke says I can buy my 07 Accord off of him. That would be another solid choice. Any of those Hondas, Toyotas, always good choices. Double Strike says BMW has gone from a status symbol to be envious of to going to it burns my eyes how far the mighty have fallen. Yeah, but BMW has no remorse about that, because they said that their sales have not been hurt. They've actually continued to increase sales. So I guess we're all crazy and everyone actually either doesn't care enough to stop buying them, or they actually like it, one or the other. But again, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But it seems like the consensus is most people don't like the way they look. But clearly, again, there's a lot of people out there that still happily slap down large amounts of money to go out and see that in their driveway or garage every day. So it is what it is. MD Can says the Kona is doing well. Just did a faux suede headliner and a dash piece. Broke a couple parts, but got them thankfully before Cars and Coffee tomorrow. Nice. That's great. It's cool to see you customizing the Kona N there. And I was just talking to someone about the Kona N Actually, I think it was I was talking to Kirk on the Santa Fe drive this past week about Kona, because we were talking about Elantra N and how it's a shame that Kona N's probably not coming back. Although I didn't talk to Hyundai about that, so I can't say that for sure. I was sitting near some of the product planners. I actually had dinner right across from the product planners for the Santa Fe drive for dinner the last night there. And I was trying to like think of ways to like non-awkwardly like try and get some. I mean, they always say, we can't talk about future product. That's the canned response. So, there's nothing really, that I'm able to pull out of any of those people usually anyway. But, I would have loved to try to, bring up like Kona N or, what's happening with next gen Elantra N and things like that. But, their lips are sealed. So, they usually don't ever even give out any kind of hints or anything. Some of the better reporters are able to pulling some stuff out of them, but for me, I'm just there to have a nice evening dinner and have fun with all of them. And it's some of the stories though that you hear. It's just so cool. The one guy like who was a product planner for Hyundai used to be the product planner for Mitsubishi back during the like early 2000s, and like they were telling me about like how they supplied cars for Too Fast Too Furious and working through all that kind of stuff and just so many cool things that when you get to talking with people about their histories and their past, I mean it's so many cool things. You can come up with these cool stories, and just the whole industry it's fascinating. I love being at these media drives because it's just the amount of people you talk to. And I mean, again, getting to hang with all your friends that are also in this industry, but also just the, executives that have been, doing this stuff for a long time. They have, so many cool stories and things, you never thought you'd get to talk to like people that supplied cars, for Too Fast Too Furious or whatever. It's like, oh yeah, like that was me or whatever, just cool stuff. And anyway, getting off on tangents again, but MD Can also said, and that finally kicked off the N Club for PA. Got 5 members, excluding myself now. Nice. Very cool. Well, I hope it continues to grow, and good on you for trying to bring people together. That's awesome. And Mike says, is it a fair assumption that Honda cannot solely transition into EVs without a partner, at least capital-wise? No, I think Honda's big enough that they can probably pull it off on their own for the most part. I mean, they've partnered with Sony for the Afeela stuff. But I think that's mostly just to try and get a competitive advantage because they see that the curve ahead as we go to more and more driver assistance stuff is having more in-car entertainment stuff. And so I think partnering with Sony is really smart for that. But as far as, I mean, they're doing their own EV platform that's coming in 2026. The GM stuff was just to try and, get caught up quicker, but I think Prologue probably won't last very long once the actual real Honda EVs come onto the scene. So I think Honda can do it, and they're working on it. They're also working on solid state stuff. I believe they're saying 2028 or so for their solid state batteries, which could really help them to leapfrog ahead of the others too if they can actually crack that around the same time that Toyota, Nissan, and other companies are trying to get into that as well. So we'll see if they actually can pull that off. But if someone does crack solid state, I mean, then it is really game over for the gas stuff, because then you're talking, especially if you can do it in a cost-effective manner, you're talking about less than 10-minute recharge times and 600 miles of range, and also a vehicle that doesn't weigh a zillion pounds, because solid state's so much smaller, so much less mineral intensive, and so much lighter. That's really going to be the quantum leap in EVs if we can actually crack that solid state stuff in real volume. And SMB says the only EVs, no offense, that catch my eye are Rivians and Lucid vehicles. Totally get it. I mean, again, the Mach-E, I hated the siding, for the longest time. I hated the name. I hated everything about it. Then I changed my tune. But yeah, I think Rivians are great. Lucids are great. And they are certainly some of the most eye-catching ones out there. I agree with that for sure. And Shrug Car Guy says, I know this may be crazy to say, but do you think Dodge would bring back the Viper if they could make it a hybrid or EV? I don't think so. And I mean, it's just, I think I was talking to someone about this recently as well, where I don't think we'll ever see market conditions where like a Viper could really even be a thing, to be totally honest. I mean, sure, with EVs, it's easier from a money standpoint if you don't have to invest in some kind of crazy engine. But I don't think Dodge, especially now with, again, everything being so capital intensive with, this EV transition, there's less money to go around for fun projects. They can just, burn money away for fun pretty much. So I think that, especially Dodge has learned from Charger and Challenger, like this is the way to still have fun, still have passionate, exciting products, but also make good money and do something that's not, just a burning engineering, dumpster fire of money, pretty much, even though again, amazing cars and amazing talent behind it, but just something that, obviously is not super profitable, even with higher profit margins these days. It's just, you're really doing an uphill battle there. Cause a modern day Viper would have to be a $200,000 car, pretty much in my mind, if you're going to have top notch performance, especially with a V10 or even a V8 for that matter, and actually have something that competes with the 911s and things like that. I mean, look at 911s. You can't get a decent one for less than 150 grand now. So I think you'd be talking about those kind of prices. And then, who's picking a Dodge over a Porsche? I guess you could have always made that argument in the past as well, but at least back then it was, the V10. That was kind of something unique. But now with the hybrid or an EV thing for a Viper, then why not just get a Taycan or, any of the other things that are fast in a straight line? That it kind of gives the Viper less uniqueness, I think. And I feel like it would be just too much of an uphill battle, unfortunately, as much as I'd love to see it. Trenton Carg, I thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships there. I really appreciate it and happy to see everyone was able to snatch those up. And Jordan, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, Honda Clarity, a cash grab or data collector? I think Clarity was a compliance vehicle primarily. They sold them to a lot of, places that needed plug-in hybrids early on. Clarity, though, again, probably almost certainly a very unpopular opinion. Clarity was great. I did a quick drive video in it. It was I went to the New York Auto Show with Honda back in 2018. I think it was primarily for, the Civic refresh back then for the FK8 generation. But we did a quick little drive in the Clarity, and I didn't do a full review on it. Maybe I didn't even do that. I might have not even done a video on it. I don't remember because it was so long ago. But I liked the Clarity. I think the Clarity was brilliant. And they had a good marketing campaign too, because it was like one of the first plug-in hybrids, and their whole commercial. I remember the commercial vividly. It was like electric for, whenever you're around town, and a gas engine and a fuel tank there for when you need to go further. And it was like a battery, and it was like it continued to extend, and just like the car continued to drive off into the horizon with this unlimited range thing. I think it was actually really well done. I think the styling didn't help with the Clarity. And I think, they could have probably, just try to do, they could have produced more of them and try to, really push it harder than they did. But, I think that was just kind of a compliance thing, an early test bed. But it's just a shame they abandoned the plug-in hybrids, because, they could have just transplanted that stuff straight into a CRV and beat Toyota to the punch with the, RAV4 Prime. Honda's made some really odd choices in the past 5 or 10 years, in my opinion, that it's almost like GM levels of decision making, where it's like they don't want to make money for some reason, and they're not wanting to succeed, where it seems like they have the money, they've invested the tech, and they've done everything. They got all the Lego pieces. You just got to put them together in a different way. And they just are like, nah, let's just throw it all out instead. It's just really strange. But no, I think Clarity is great. And, I think there are some components to it, as far as the data collection thing for those early ones with, the hydrogen version, that obviously was just kind of an experimental thing. But I think the actual regular gas plug-in hybrid thing and the actual regular hybrid one they also offered were great. And it's, again, they were big vehicles too. They were usable. They were just, I thought the Clarity was good. I actually completely forgot about the Clarity, so thank you for reminding me about that. Clarity is not a vehicle that should be forgotten, even though it almost certainly has already been forgotten by 99.9% of the population. Let me see, getting back to their member questions here. PK says, do you think the new QX80 will save Infiniti at least a little bit? I think it will certainly help Infiniti a good bit. Yeah, because, again, giant, expensive SUVs are very popular right now, but it's not easy. Wagoneers are now getting big discounts as well. And, that's showing that cracking into the Navigator Escalade kind of territory is tough. So I think QX80 will certainly help. Will it radically change Infiniti's fortunes? I don't think so. But I think it'll be a good first step as we see them, do everything as a new vehicle, here in the next few years, hopefully. I think it'll help, but I'm not expecting it to, save Infiniti or anything like that. They still have plenty of challenges ahead of them, I think. SMD says, I wonder if you made a mini series of teaching Beth how to drive manual in the Bullet. That's something that maybe will happen someday. The Bullet is just my baby, and teaching people to drive manual. Beth already knows how to drive, kind of, so it's not like she'd be, too rough on it, but it still wouldn't be as smooth as I like to treat the Bullet. For the first few times, she'd be great, I'm sure, pretty quickly. But that's, I'm sure people would like to just watch me cringe and be nervous and stuff, and the fun and the hilarity of it. But maybe in another vehicle, if I can get a press car that company's okay with me beating up on the clutch a little bit, that could be something we'd do someday with Beth. But she's also not too interested in learning how to like get better at it either. Usually because we even brought up the idea a long time ago of like, hey, like, would you want to get a manual transmission car in the future? And she's just like, no, like I have enough to worry about with, our daughter in the back and keeping her entertained while focusing on driving and stuff. She's like, I don't want to need to worry about like shifting and not stalling and all that kind of stuff. So for her, I mean, obviously someone who's done it a long time, it's just second nature. You don't have to really focus that much on it. But if you're someone who's not used to been, driving a manual forever, it is one extra thing to think about. And right now, Beth doesn't need one more thing to think about, having her hands plenty full being a mom. So I think for that reason, she's probably not going to be jumping at the opportunity to learn manual. But we can wait, and maybe we can ask her that question again in the next week or two here, maybe if she comes on to another live stream here soon. And two says, Kyle informed me that Toyota has updated Matt's contract. He's now the only GR shill Clarkson voice in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce you to Toyota GR fan shill TGFS. I wish that I had a contract with Toyota. That would, again, make life much easier and would allow me to continue to do this channel a lot longer. Then we'll see what happens. But no sponsorships from car companies, unfortunately, just to keep it clear for anyone who's not on the inside jokes there. And Trying Car Guys says, apparently I'm one of the only people in the world who isn't crazy about Toyota. That's totally fine. I mean, they have their fans, they have their haters. There's always a couple of people that chime in on any Toyota review or Lexus one for that matter and say all the things they hate about Toyota. So I know there's certainly things where, again, they're not the best in every way, but I think they do a pretty good job. But totally agree. If we all like the same vehicles, it'd be a very boring world because we'd all be driving around the same stuff. And SMD says, I miss how Infiniti would cram V8s in their sedans. Crappy MPG, but great sound. I agree. So many cool things. And that would be a great way to make them exciting again these days. It's just no one's doing that. But I mean, even if they, shoved a twin turbo V6 and everything, like if they were able to do like a next gen Q50 and keep the performance and, do more sedans, that'd be great. But sedans just don't make money anymore, at least right now. And Double Strike thinks the minute Infiniti started naming everything Q is the minute they lost their way. I don't know where Infiniti really lost their way, to be totally honest. I really think that in the early 2010s here, they were actually really doing some good stuff. I think, everyone was really taking notice of G35, G37. They had some really good driving dynamics. There was good value. It was good styling, and it made sense price-wise, especially, beyond the MSRP. Once you got into the actual dealer and you got a discount off of them and stuff, they were really compelling. They were solid cars. They hold up well, it seems, for the most part. I've reviewed a bunch of them now. And so, I don't know. I mean, I think that's, the Q switchover, I mean, like Q50 is still great. I think that was actually really good. To me, I think whenever Infiniti started doing CVTs is when they started like, whenever the QX60 was just like, very unappealing in my opinion. I think that got a little soft. I think whenever they got softer was what kind of sunk Infiniti in my mind. I guess, they're going after the luxury money and the Lexus approach of, not having everything be super exciting. But even in those days, Lexus had, all the F products and stuff. So, I don't know. I think it's just, they kind of Yeah, they got rid of their edge. You know, the FX was edgy. I mean, even all the the Q45, M45, M56, like SMD, thank you very much for listing all of them so I don't have to remember all of them myself. FX50 was cool. They all just had like an edge to them. They're edgy. I don't think Infinitis are edgy anymore. You know, I think that a little bit of that edginess, maybe a little to copy a little bit out of the Dodge playbook, you know, just make them a little more mischievous. Maybe, you know, copy off Jag's notes. I mean, I guess it didn't work for Jag very well, but, you know, like their whole marketing campaign of good to be bad and stuff back in the day. Like, I think Infiniti needs an edge. Just not just luxury and like, ooh, this is nice. Like that's a snooze fest. Like everything's nice in the luxury segment. You know, I think the edge and I mean, even like BMW is a prime case. They have an edge. And yes, they have the luxury, and yes, they, you know, have obviously just the brand recognition. But I think, you know, for better or for worse, I mean, we're all talking about BMW and their hideous styling, but people are still buying a ton of them. Maybe Infiniti needs to go edgier. I hope they don't make hideous cars, but, you know, maybe something like that would cause someone to take notice and be like, whoa, like, what is that? You know, I don't think anyone does that with an Infiniti. Even the new QX80 that we're, you know, seeing teasers of, like, it's going to be beautiful and elegant and classy, but no one's going to be like, whoa, like, what is that? Everyone's like, oh, that's a nice car. Cool. But, like, I don't think anyone's going to be like, holy crap, like they are when they see a new BMW on the road, you know? So I think, to me, I think the edge is what Infiniti needs personally. I think that is, I'd love to hear everyone else's thoughts too about where they think Infiniti lost their way. That's a very, very good thing to talk about. I think, you know, if they were going to go soft, Infiniti, they just weren't good with the execution. If they were going to go soft and just, you know, make everything vanilla, then they should have just, you know, taken every Nissan and slapped Infiniti badges on it and nicer interior. But they didn't go that far either. So it's like they tried to like be different, but not different enough and not mainstream enough to just, you know, do the thing that Lexus does, which is, you know, again, there's a little more to it, but make nicer Toyotas. You know, they didn't ever go that far with just, you know, phoning it in, I guess you could say. Again, not like Lexus does. I think Lexus has a lot of unique stuff, but, you know, it's just that I think that kind of thing could have been beneficial. So they should have either gone one extreme or the other, and instead they ended up in the middle, and lukewarm is just not exciting for anybody in my mind. Love to hear your thoughts though, but I appreciate the discussion. It's interesting. Let me see. I see Luke saying SLMD sedan is slammed sedan. Thank you. I didn't put that together either. I thought the MD was like a Maryland thing or something. So thank you, Luke, for spelling that. SMD, you could have totally corrected me a long time ago. I guess I will call you Slam Sedan now if that's okay. Let me see. I see also Kong saying I look just like WX fan. We are one and the same, although two likes to think that we're different. And Kyle, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships there. I really appreciate it, and glad to see everyone grabbing those. But getting back to the other member questions here. Let me see. So Raphael says, I saw 6 in 3 years now, 3 this year alone. I'm the only one without aftermarket parts for the Camry TRD. Nice. Well, I mean, it's nothing wrong with keeping it stock either. I think they did a really good job with them stock as well. And Slam Sedan says, Matt, you should check out Divine Media's Toyota Century V12. They did a great job restoring it. I'll have to check that out. Thanks for the recommendation. Let me see. Wild Frame says Volvo's crap. I mean, they definitely have their issues in a lot of different ways for sure. Build quality is not great. Tech's not great. Reliability is not great. So again, they lean on the safety thing for sure. Also Wild Frame says cheap is the way. PK says, I think the EX30 will be a big hit. I think so too. I think it's actually, going to be a really, really popular thing. And I just wish it had a gauge cluster, but we actually, Beth and I were talking about it just yesterday as like a potential maybe Mach-E replacement down the road. Again, assuming we can afford something that expensive and assuming we still want an EV and, you know, assuming the EX30 proves itself to be a reliable and solid little vehicle in the next couple of years before we need to swap in 2026. We'll see. But EX30 should be good. And Joel says Volvo is also one of the few car companies that still will fly you to Europe to see your car being built. Interesting. I didn't know they still did that. That's cool. What? I don't even know, because I know a lot of the Volvos are built here in the States. So I guess you got to buy one of the few that are still built somewhere in Europe. That's cool. I didn't know that. Thanks for the info, Joel. And Trent Car Guy says, I'm one of those in said minimum wage job who can't afford housing or a new car. And that's the part of the market that I wish, yeah, was better served instead of just being like, well, we got used stuff. Like, again, obviously, I'm sure that certain people, can't afford new cars regardless of how cheap they are. But like, there's only so far you can go cheap wise, with prices. But still, just even with higher price stuff now, it's like, well, if you can't afford something 30 grand, just buy used. And it's like there used to be good $20,000 options, and now there's nothing really in the $20,000 range. I mean, there are a few, but there's not nearly as many choices as there used to be, and that's what's definitely a bummer. Slam Sedan says it's crazy to see how Ford has developed the 5.0s from 1987 with 150 horsepower to 480 in 2024. It is awesome, and the fact that like the fuel economy is basically still pretty much the same, even with all that extra power. Engineering is great. Engineers are brilliant people, and the stuff that they pull off is really really impressive. And this is why I think it makes sense to listen to the engineers. They're solving the problems of tomorrow the same way they solved, they had all the smartness of, bringing up a 5-liter V8 from 150 horsepower to 480. I think that's why we should have every confidence that they can, crack, these batteries and crack all this other stuff and really, have some impressive stuff. Engineers are brilliant people. And Wild Frame says old Mazda 3 2.5 is amazing. There you go. I agree. Talking about the earlier discussion there on the $7,000 car. Raphael says my sister absolutely loves the new pig nose BMWs. Totally subjective. I think it's awful, while I still love their interiors. Yeah, but I mean, even the interiors have been getting crap because they're not having any climate controls anymore. So it's all totally subjective. And yeah, it's interesting though. Thank you for telling me that. That's the first person I've heard who actually loves the new BMW settings. So there's one out there, and many others, I'm sure, again with the sales. But Double Strike says I need to convince my wife to wrap her e-tron in the same purple as that Taycan GT. That color is gorgeous. Any ideas for how to convince her? I mean, color is tough. You could say that it'll make her car look more expensive because it could look like she got a custom paint job. And I mean, technically it is more expensive if you're putting a wrap on it. You've invested money there. It would help it stand out, look unique. Not like an e-tron's a common car, but extra exclusivity, if that's something that would appeal to her, maybe. Other than that, it protects the paint. So she maybe could be, especially if you're getting like one of the more durable, like Expel wraps, things like that, on top of that, you can say, well, you don't have to worry about dinging it as much, because if you ding it, there's paint underneath, and we just pull the wrap off anyway. So maybe there's some ease of use and lesser mental load from a care standpoint. Maybe it could be attractive. I think that's about all I got for you there. Hopefully something there helps a little bit, and good luck in your pursuit. I wholeheartedly support your passion there for the purple e-tron. That'd be awesome. Love purple cars. Daniel says, have you considered combining several clips from the live streams to make a longer 10-minute video? I know you're not a Scotty Kilmer fan, but that's worked very well for him. I didn't know that he combined multiple live stream clips into a longer video. That's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm still kind of feeling out the whole, little clips there that I've been posting. To be totally honest, a lot of the times I don't have enough questions that I think have broad appeal to put them into a separate video. And so whenever I do a few of those, if I combine them all into like one thing, then it would give me less of the filler videos that I need to get me in between the car reviews and the updates every week. So there's that logistical kind of hurdle there. I wouldn't be opposed to that, because once it's over 8 minutes long, then you can add mid-roll ads, which helps the video to pay more. But I think I don't know. I mean, I think there's maybe this is just my opinion. I'd be curious to hear what you guys think, but I feel like there is an appeal to these, 1 to 3 minute long videos that aren't shorts in the shorts feed, but are still little bite-sized things you can just watch quickly and be done with. And, a little less commitment than a 10-minute video. Again, even as myself being someone who's super busy all the time, if it's something that's less than 5 minutes, I'm way more likely to just be like, all right, I'll just watch it right now in my sub feed, or if it pops up on the homepage, okay, I'll just click it now, instead of putting it into my watch later playlist and be like, oh, I'll watch that, some other time. 10-minute videos, I still, can usually find time to, while I'm eating lunch or something, watch. But, I feel like the shorter it is, the less of a hurdle there is from a, watch standpoint. So I kind of like keeping them as short as possible, but again, if the 10-minute thing works for him, I think Scotty has an appeal all his own that I will never be able to even get close to duplicating for a wide variety of reasons. But again, it worked for him, and clearly, I'm open to anything that could potentially, help the channel that doesn't compromise my morals, or my respect for my viewers. Are two lines I won't cross, that others are happy to walk back and forth all over all the time. But I won't get too much more into that. But anyway, and Cam Jam says, sorry, Matt, I've been binge watching Mission Impossible with my dad recently, a little late. No worries. Mission Impossible is great. I got to get caught up on those myself. I haven't watched the past few. Unfortunately, I wish I would have. But oh man, I missed all the super chats. Sorry, I don't know why these didn't pop up in my thing. So apologies for that. Two, thank you so much for super chat. He says, allegedly, Matt and FWF are the same. Allegedly. Yep. It is. The receipts are there. You can go back and watch an old Cybertruck fan video, and you will see that it is under the Matt Maran Motoring channel now. I appreciate that somebody slammed. I gotta rewire my brain. Slam Sedan. Appreciate the super chat as well. Sean, thank you so much for the super chat as well. He says, just got off of work. What did I miss? All the good usual hangouts. A lot of soapboxing tonight from me, so apologies again. You can go back and watch if you want to see me get all my soapboxes about EVs and all that kind of stuff again. But thank you again, Sean, for joining in for the super chat. Two, thank you for another super chat as well. He says, Matt says it's just a basement lore. We say it's the most infamous basement that doesn't belong to R. Kelly, allegedly. Too soon? Oh man, yeah, I'm not gonna touch that one, but. Oh man, you're so funny too. And I see MDK says, not the biggest fan of Scotty, lots of clickbait. You said it, not me. I will just let that one sit there and get another drink of water here while I find where I was at with the member questions. Okay, so Triton Car Guy, okay, we're talking about Mitsubishi's there. And Wild Frame says, good luck, Bat. Eastern Europeans going to sleep. Thank you so much for hanging out. I mean, I can't imagine. It's got to be really late already. It's what, 6 hours? If you haven't signed off already, 6 hours ahead. So, I mean, what is it? Yeah, 4 a.m. there or something. I'm amazed that you joined any of these live streams because I would have been asleep a long time ago. So thank you so much, Wild Frames, for joining. And sorry, these aren't at a better time for Europeans. I did used to do them earlier, and that's something I may, revisit down the road. But I think, it seems like these evening ones do work well for most people. But I apologize that it means you got to be up in the middle of the night there to join. But thank you so much for joining, Wild Frames. I really appreciate it. And Sean, thank you so much for the super chat again as well. He says, how are you guys celebrating St. Patty's? Ignore if already answered. No one's asked that yet, so you are the first. Not really celebrating that much, honestly. I'm not one to really go bar crawl or anything, which is the popular thing around here, at least in Pittsburgh, is we have a strip of bars in one of the neighborhoods here downtown that that's what everyone does, is goes and gets hammered. And it's always like the most entertaining weekend of the year for that area. It's so funny. There's been a couple of times in the past where I've had to drive through there. And the amount of times I almost hit people just wandering through the streets drunk, it was just hilarious. But yeah, so not doing any specific celebrations, but happy St. Patrick's Day here coming up to anyone who does celebrate. Hope you all have a great time. And let me see other member questions here. So Luco says, are you nose blind to new car smell because of all the press cars? I've noticed each car brand has a different new car smell. My favorite is Nissan or Ford. That's a really interesting question. I actually am not nose blind. I do appreciate it. Maybe not as much as others, because usually by the time some of the cars I get have like 5,000 or 10,000 miles, in that range. And sometimes when they're that many miles, either I can't pick up on it because it's subtle enough at that point, or maybe they just have kind of worn off for the most part there. But a lot of times if I get especially a really fresh one that has, less than 1,000 miles on it, or even a couple of thousand, I definitely still smell it. And it is something I've not gone nose blind to, because I think primarily, like you said, they all have a different smell. So it's always something different to pick up on. And yeah, I do enjoy the new car smell, and I'm very fortunate that I get to experience it almost every week in various cars. It's yeah, it's a fun little perk of the job I've never really talked about, I guess. Thanks for the fun question, Luke. And Cam Jump says earlier watched all of the acceleration compilations from over the years. Love seeing all the reactions. Yeah, those are fun. They were fun to do. I should probably try and piece another one together at some point. I used to do them every 100,000 subscriber milestone, but the way the channel is growing so slowly, I'm not going to have another one for the 500,000 one. I think actually Social Blade calculated like when I'll hit 500,000 subscribers, and it's like, I don't know what they said, like 2030 or something, at this point. Like the channel's just growing so slowly. It's like, I think it's roughly around 300 new subscribers a month or something. So I got to find a different way to have an excuse to do a compilation. So yeah, that's maybe something maybe I'll start just doing them yearly and just kind of incorporate it into an end of year thing. Maybe would be the most logical way to do that. Yeah, those were fun for sure. Even though I don't have quite as many reactions as I used to have, I think I still have a few good ones every year. And thanks for watching this, Camp Jam. And Linda says, I finally bought new tires. Now Costco says my lug nuts are toast and I need all new lug nuts before they can put the tires on. Apparently this is common on Mustangs. I have a 2017. Interesting. I don't know how many miles you have on it. I think you told me a long time ago, and I don't think it was a huge amount of miles. That seems really weird. I haven't put a ton of miles on all my Mustangs. The EcoBoost was still the highest mileage when that one was, I think, almost 29,000 miles before I traded it in. But none of my Mustangs have ever had a need for new lug nuts. I don't think I've ever heard of someone having lug nuts replaced on anything that's less than 15 or 20 years old. And even then, I just feel like that's something that doesn't usually go bad. I mean, again, I don't have a ton of experience with driving super old cars or being around them all the time, but that seems weird to me. Lug nuts aren't expensive, so I don't feel like they'd be trying to like price gouge you or anything, but that's weird. Well, hopefully that all gets sorted out, and sorry you had to deal with that. That's strange. Yeah. It's the first, I think it actually is the first time I've heard of someone saying they needed new lug nuts, to be totally honest. Yeah, maybe others can chime in if maybe I'm just out of the loop on that one, but that seems weird. And Saturday Jones says a Dodge took too long to adapt, in my opinion. Should have kept the 5.7 and have factory add-ons like Pro Charger options for power. Yeah, and I would have loved to even see them do, a hybrid or plug-in hybrid 5.7, for a next gen Hellcat or something like that, and keep a V8, still have a good sound, but I throw out the supercharger and put in some electric boost or something to give you that better fuel economy and make it a little greener, but still have most of the same fun. It's kind of a shame they kind of just did the blaze of glory approach instead of delaying to the very last minute and then being like, oh wait, we're gonna run into a wall here, we need to like hurry up and change course 90 degrees and go the exact opposite direction, pretty much, do a 180. So it is interesting. Daniel says, what do you think of the styling trend of having the headlights be lower in the bumper, like on the Blazer? I'm not a fan. So it is weird. I mean, obviously when the Jeep Cherokee, debuted that 10 years ago now at this point, I thought it was the most hideous thing ever, and now everyone does it and basically has copied that almost exactly. It's insane how it's like everyone's basically just has like a Cherokee front end on a lot of their stuff now. But the one thing I will say, and I think this is the main reason why a lot of companies are doing this, is that it lowers the light so that it doesn't blind you as much. Now, it still is blinding because it's a still bright, HID or, LED light. But if you get them lower, that seems to help, especially with smaller cars, lower cars, things like that. You get blinded a little bit less, versus something that's up super high and in your face. Again, it doesn't work wonders, but it's something. And I think that that's one of the main reasons why they're doing that. And so for that reason, I welcome it. And I think that newer companies are getting better at integrating it than, in the past. And I think a lot of the style does look pretty good now these days. It all depends and it's all subjective, but to me, it's something I'm not as opposed to as I used to be. me see. Sorry, I keep missing the other super chats here. Raphael, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, I've never actually done aftermarket stuff to a car. Where do I even look for parts? I mean, there's just if you just Google parts for stuff, I mean, there will be all kinds of stuff that comes up. I mean, the main thing, if you really want high quality stuff too, you can just go to, the accessory site, or I mean, dealers are going to probably mark stuff up. So I try and buy online. But like TRD, for example, has a whole catalog of stuff you can do. And there's other, reputable, companies as well. I mean, you can even get stuff off of eBay if you want. Amazon sells, parts. There's all those as well. But typically, if you want to find like the best, aftermarket exhaust for a Camry TRD, for example, things like that. It really helps to either go on like a Facebook group for, Camrys or Camry TRDs, or a forum. You can kind of ask around, and, or Reddit pages are another great one that's really grown a lot. Those types of things can really give you a good idea of like, okay, here's what's out there. Here's the best things. You can also just on YouTube, even I've learned so much about, just even how different exhausts sound. You can just type in Camry TRD aftermarket exhaust, and you will see a bunch of little 30-second clips of people revving and doing flybys and stuff. And it'll be this brand exhaust, that brand exhaust. And you can just kind of say, okay, this sounds good, that sounds good. Again, just an example there, but you can search, coilovers for Camry TRD or something. And, you'll have a bunch of coilover reviews, and that'll get you the ability to collect all the different brand names and stuff. Then you can kind of do your own research, Googling those brands and kind of doing the legwork there. Yeah, MDCAN is the same thing there about doing the forums. But Reddit's really seems like that's been an emerging source of good information, since forums is kind of something for, again, me being a millennial and, growing up with that, and the older generations still kind of like that stuff. But it seems like a lot of the younger generations are, going on the other stuff, which is also, a great way. It's all just about exchanging those ownership experiences and leaning on each other for advice. And it's great. Let me see. So, thank you so much for another super chat as well. He says, replying to Sean, tied to the basement heater, watched Kyle play Raid Shadow Legends, and the karate chop guy tied to a chair, spouting about how his name is matters, something like that. There you go. As far as what I'm doing for, or what everyone's doing for St. Patrick's Day, that's it. Yeah, maybe I'll toss some green beer down to you too, and you and Kyle can split it. But let me see. Getting back to the member questions here. Let me see. Gonna get another drink of water here. Slam Sedan says, I know how to drive manual, but this Los Angeles traffic makes me not want one. If I had to deal with LA traffic every day, I wouldn't have a manual either. Every car I've ever had has been a manual, but I would not have a manual if I had to deal with LA traffic. I've sat in it plenty of times, many times in manual transmissions as well. Nope, would not do it if that was my choice on a daily basis. Definitely not. So I do not blame you whatsoever. And let me see. So, Truck and Car Guy says Infiniti needs to make some changes so they look unique and not just fancy Nissans. Yeah, that could be one way to do it. But a lot of them, like the Q50 and stuff, it's a Japanese Nissan, but it's not like it's an Altima or something. It's just, I feel like they have fairly unique stuff. It's just not enough still, for some reason. Cam Jim says, how do you feel about Lucid? Do you think they have a better chance than Fisker? Sat in an air at the auto show, seemed very nice, especially compared to Model S. Lucid has some challenges. I think they're certainly better off than Fisker. I mean, I think Fisker actually this past week, hired a lawyer for a law firm for doing or starting potentially bankruptcy proceedings. I mean, and not to like be mean, but I mean, Fisker, I was always pretty much counting them as ending up being a failure. Unfortunately, they didn't have the hype. They didn't have anything really going for them, to be totally honest. There was no competitive edge. There was nothing that they were doing better than anybody else, in my opinion. And in many cases, it seems like most things were much worse. It'd be bad enough if they were just equal, but they're not even equal with, even, the other, smaller companies out there. I think Lucid has a tough battle as well. I think that they're not as firm of footing as Rivian. But I think Lucid, I think they will make it. I mean, it's gonna be tough. They got to get this gravity out there. Like they got to get it out as fast as they possibly can. I think the cars are brilliant. I've never driven one. I had an opportunity to review a Lucid. I turned it down an air because luxury high end EVs just don't do well on this channel, especially if they're not crazy. If I was offered a Sapphire, I probably would have taken that because that would have just been a crazy reaction that would have been worthwhile probably. And maybe if they offer a Sapphire, I will take that. But the regular Air, just I feel like no one would have watched that video on my channel. But so I've never driven one. I've never actually even sat in a Lucid myself. But it seems like they're really impressive. I like that they've now got CarPlay in them, which is great. It seems like the motors are really, really efficient. I mean, the range they're pulling out of these Lucids is crazy. So I think that is, they have a competitive advantage. They're doing something better than everybody else, in my opinion, with that. And again, offering CarPlay for someone who wants a Model S, wants something new and fresh, and also wants world-class range, good luxury. I think there's some good stuff there. Now, I have heard also just through the grapevine, just talking to other journalists and other people, it seems like Lucid still has a problem with quality a little bit, and it seems like they also have a problem with support. It seems like support isn't great. Now, that is something that a lot of the early companies struggle with. Polestar is also struggling with that a little bit as well. Hopefully, they will figure that stuff out before it turns too many people off. But it seems like some people are like really intrigued by the Lucid and then end up regretting it later. Again, that's just I've heard just like anecdotal things here and there, but it's far from a general consensus. I want to root for Lucid. I want Lucid to do well, and I think that they have the potential again because they're doing stuff better than others. But it's just going to be, can they survive until Gravity launches? I think that's going to be the toughest part because, the Air is getting a little stale now and they got to, cut the prices down. And, again, sedans aren't the it thing. So I think, they got to get the Gravity out. That's the bottom line. Now, if they can make it to that, then I think it's going to be smooth sailing from there on out. It's just getting to that point. I think also if I were betting, I would say that Lucid is the top company that I think could be either bought or supported by Apple. I think if I were to imagine an Apple car that Apple just wanted to buy and slap badges on, I think a Lucid would be the closest in my mind of what I could imagine an Apple car being. So I think that's if they need a lifeline and Apple still is interested in getting into the car game, which seems like they may not be. But if Lucid comes in with the right offer, and you got someone like Apple, willing to swoop in and support them, I think that could really help too. And I think they have a decent chance of being attractive to an investor if they get to that point of needing, a life vest there. But hopefully they'll be okay. And I also see Scott Beneath that says, how do I get a membership? There's a link in the description here to join, become a member, and get the priority answering. There should also be a join button on the video, but maybe there isn't. But if there isn't, there's always that link in the description there. And a truck car guy, okay, he's explaining, thanks. And MDCan says, the XC40 and C40 recharges are surprisingly reliable. That's good to hear. I hadn't actually kept up with those. I kind of quit looking at them, after we kind of, went on to the Mach-E because we were considering an XC40 recharge. So I'm glad to hear they're reliable. That's great. And Cam Jim says, drove a Polestar, seemed nice. I would like to buy something built in the US or Japan to be safe. Totally get it. Totally makes sense. Let me see. Other questions here. Making It Happen says, I like the M5, probably the only BMW I like. The M5s are sweet, and I'm excited to see what they do with the new one here. It's going to be wild, I'm sure. And let me see. Making It Happen also says, hey, Matt, BMW M5 comp or CT5e Blackwing? CT5e Blackwing all day, every day. It's just a little smaller. It's a little lighter. It's a little more raw. And it's a supercharged V8. I mean, twin turbo V8 in the M5 is amazing. And I, sung the praises of the M5 competition whenever I reviewed one back in, I think it was 2018, 2019. They're very impressive. I think my title of the video was, what can't it do? The M5 is amazing. CT5e Blackwing is amazing and edgy and exciting and rewarding. The M5 really does all the driving for you. The M5, you don't have to be a good driver to drive that car fast, at least in my mind. Obviously, you have to like have enough of a brain to not kill yourself in it, but it just sorts everything out with the all-wheel drive. It sorts everything out with just being so. It's kind of the same thing as like the Porsche Taycan that I reviewed this past week, where it's very exciting, it's very fun, and I'm not detracting from those cars whatsoever. But there's not the level of skill required like there is with something with rear-wheel drive. The Blackwing, and maybe it's just me, again, growing up with the BRZ and stuff and my love of rear-wheel drive, it's just more engaging. I know the M5 has the rear-wheel drive mode and all that, but I think that the CT5V is a little more pure. You can get it with a manual. I could go on all day, but CT5V Blackwing is the clear winner in my mind between those two. Again, everyone likes something different. I will say the M5 competition is more comfortable. If I wanted something to sedately get back and forth to the office every day or something, M5 is going to be the better luxury car. But if you want something that actually is going to, reward you every day beyond just a fast 0 to 60, I think CT5V Blackwing is the thing that it makes you want to act up. It makes you want to slide it around. It makes you want to just be, it's so loud with the exhaust and everything. It's just the hooligan. It's just the one to just misbehave in. And if that has an appeal to you, I think that is the thing that I'm just getting excited just thinking about it. Oh man, I need to find another excuse to drive a CT5V Blackwing again soon. But yes, they're fantastic. 100%. If I could afford one, I would swap the Bullet for one like that. Wouldn't even think twice about it. Wouldn't miss the Bullet one bit if I had a CT5V Blackwing. They're amazing. And let me see. I don't want to miss that. Thank you too for another super chat. He says we have Fiskers in the basement. Scissors, that is. Scissor. I'm not gonna read that. I'm not gonna read that. But anyway, Two also thank you for another super chat. He says Matt, Infiniti needs an edge. Ford, that's why we don't invite you. There we go. Yeah. I think there's plenty of reasons why Ford probably doesn't like me, and that's okay. I will always be honest and be unfiltered. It's just for me, that's important. Anyway, Luke says, I enjoy Scotty. Yes, some clickbait, but I've learned a lot about maintaining my own car from him that I never knew years ago, as well as basic diagnosis. Yeah, and I think, there's a lot of great YouTube mechanics out there that have done such a great job. I mean, I'm good friends with, Chris Fix. He's done an amazing job of teaching people how to work on your cars in your driveway with basic hand tools. And, Eric the Car Guy, Humble Mechanic. These are all guys I chat with, on an almost weekly basis. I have a ton of respect for them, but they've all done that without clickbait. And, again, I won't go off into the weeds here, but obviously clickbait pays off. We see this in every corner of the world, in every possible social media and media platform. And it's gone back to, the National Enquirer, that we used to see at the end cap of the grocery stores and stuff. I mean, it works. It works, and he's laughing all the way to the bank, and that's fine. It's, again, I wish I had his view counts and his subscriber count. So it clearly works. It's just, I think you can have good advice and be a really successful channel like Chris Fix. I mean, he's got 10 million subscribers, and he did it all without ever clickbaiting anyone, without ever misleading people, without ever being deceptive, while giving back so much to so many people, and never screaming at the camera. I can go on and on. I mean, I know actually YouTube has told me I have a lot of overlap with Scotty fans, so I'm not going to do that. But I mean, like, he even just did a video of, like, I think he said, like, rip. Like, he made it seem like he died. Like, what the heck? Like, all right, I should probably just stop talking. But yeah, I respect you guys too much to do that stuff. I will say that. And I think people who do clickbait, they don't respect their viewers. They think that they're easily duped. They think that they're just people who will click instinctively on anything, and and I mean, people do click on it, and so it rewards that behavior that continues on. And that's, I think, is still an issue these days, even though YouTube's fighting against clickbait and trying to minimize that. It's just something that sensationalism is going to always work, and it's just the way it is. But Um, I just don't think it's necessary. And I think Chris Fix has excellently shown that you don't need that to be a massively successful, helpful car mechanic channel. And I love Chris's channel for that because I think it's a beacon of integrity in these days of clickbait, everything everywhere. But anyways, sorry for all the rants and tangents tonight, as I'm sure people will sign off, at least all the Scotty fans. But anyway, let me see. Linda says her EcoBoost only had 44,000 miles for the lug nuts to go. That is really strange. Something's off there in my mind. I don't know what's going on. Unless maybe it's just where you live or something. If it's, yeah, I don't know. I can't rationalize that. I'd love to hear anyone else's thoughts. If anyone's got a guess there for that one. And let me see. Slam Sedan says, Raphael, be careful with adding a cold air intake to your car. So much torque might twist your chassis. Yeah, cold air intakes. Some cars you actually do need a tune for too. And Dave says some lugs have a thin metal cap on them that goes bad. Interesting. Okay, well, thank you, Dave, for the info. So maybe that's what's going on. I learned something new tonight. So thank you so much, Dave, for that insight. Let me see. Jordan, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, could Mazda's historic rotary tech enhance the future of EVs and PHEVs with multi-fuel sources? I think rotary tech actually does have some promise if they can get it more efficient. I think the rotary is a brilliant idea with the way they're doing it as a range extender, and they really seem like they're working on that more and more, and that's going to be a thing we'll probably see for Mazdas here, for the second half of this decade. And I think it's brilliant because rotaries are so small. You can put them in the floor, you can put them in all these different places, and it's great because you kind of have the perks of an EV with the packaging and not having some giant engine, but you have all the perks of a plug-in hybrid as well. I think that if it's really the efficiency, because rotaries are horribly bad on gas. So if they can crack the efficiency thing, then I think that Mazda could have lightning in a bottle with finally a good mass market justification for rotary. And if they crack it and no one else can, because Mazda is the rotary company, that could just catapult them to dominance in the plug-in hybrid market in the future if and that's a big if, they can get that efficiency good and get the reliability good, because rotaries historically aren't also super reliable without a lot of really meticulous maintenance, which you can't expect out of anyone that's the average driver out there that isn't an enthusiast. So there's a lot of ifs there, but if they can clear those things, I think that absolutely rotary could be a game changer. But I'm skeptical if they will actually be able to crack all that stuff. But if they can, then yeah, I would love to see Mazda have a giant glow up of they're already doing a lot of great things and having some nice growth, but I'd love to see them really, do a quantum leap there with that if they could. And let me see. Trent Carger says, at this point, the members may as well be called Matt's Basement Club or something like that. Yeah, it's just, for people who don't get the inside jokes, I don't want it to be weird for the normal, newcomers coming in that are unaware of what's going on. Maybe we could do like a separate tier of Basement Club or something, although that would still probably make people be weirded out. Let me see. I think we're talking about stickers adding horsepower. That's man, if that's the case, then I saw there was a car today just loaded up with stickers. Would have been enough. And it was actually, I think it was an Altima, which is already the fastest car in the world. Then you put stickers on it, and then you really got a rocket ship. That would be I probably saw one of the fastest cars in the world today. A sticker-packed Altima. Slam Sedan also says a Recaro Sparko seatbelt cover. That's it. I will admit that 16-year-old Supertrucks fan did have an STI seatbelt cover on my 1997 Subaru Impreza Outback Sport with its 132 horsepower Fury and 4-speed automatic. I don't know if I ever went into all the mods that I actually had in that car. but it was not a lot. But I did carbon fiber hood scoop on that. It came with a hood scoop already, even though it wasn't functional. But I'm putting carbon fiber one on. I actually grabbed a seat out of an '04 STI and bolted that into the driver's seat, only the driver's seat of the '97 Outback Sport. Did the seatbelt cover, and what else did I do? I put O2 WRX wheels on it because it had steel wheels with hubcaps. I got rid of those, although I still have one of the hubcaps hanging in my garage. Got rid of the hubcaps and put WRX wheels on it. And what else did I do? Oh, I did the Apexi giant exhaust. It wasn't actually an exhaust, a giant muffler that had to be hacked up. It like ruined the ground clearance because the way they had to route the piping, I actually would scrape going over speed bumps sometimes, even with stock right head. I never lowered it. But it was just 16-year-old and 17-year-old Matt there for about 9 months or so, and then the Legacy GT got traded in, and that made me a much classier individual immediately. Although I even with that one, I immediately put the loud exhaust on it, and but that one I actually kept it pretty classy to impressive for a Matt that was 17 and 18 years old. I'm surprised I didn't make it worse, but just an exhaust, the 50/50 blow off valve. Which actually was kind of still in vogue at the time. We're talking, late 2000s. And then that was pretty much it. I did a shift knob, did wheels, or actually I left the wheels stock, but I did different wheels for winter. But anyway, I don't know why I'm going on this rant, but anyway, seatbelt cover is something I admittedly did do. I got a cat hair floating here. And Trent Car Guy says slaps roof. This car has got all the stickers, which means it's got a lot of power. There you go. And Slam Sedan says universal front lip and Slam sticker or society sticker combo. That's it. That's still a popular combo. Nathaniel, thanks for joining in. He says, hey, Matt, I'm shocked you don't like the Fisker. Those cars look amazing. The styling is a 10 out of 10. Interiors are nice too. What do you find lacking in the Fisker? For me, the styling is fine. Yeah, you're right. It's not like it looks bad. It's just the reliability. They have a laundry list of issues, and hopefully they will work through those issues, but it's bad. It's like people are like getting stuck in their cars on hot days, or they can't because the doors aren't working with unlatching. The actual Fisker himself, his wife was driving hers, and it lost power on the highway. Multiple people have lost power on the highway. There's a whole, if you Google, someone did a big article about all the issues going on with the Fisker Oceans right now, but it is it's a car that, I saw one for the first time on the road about a month ago or so, and I actually laughed out loud, and I was like, man, that's a braver person than I'll ever be to risk a Fisker at this point in time, especially with no dealer support. An unknown company that who knows if they're going to be around, if they're on their way to bankruptcy pretty much. And what are you going to do for parts? What are you going to do for servicing? What are you going to do for any of that stuff, especially with an EV that doesn't have any kind of familiar stuff to it, really? It's talk about badly depreciating vehicles. That is, you're actually not going to be able to give them away if they go bankrupt here. I don't know. So yeah, there's a lot of things I don't like about the Fisker, and you got to be a very brave individual to go early adopter on that one. And Jordan, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, like to see amazing cars built here in the USA. Yeah, I'm always happy to see more, and there's so many more companies in the past few years here that, especially with that infrastructure bill and all the changes to the rules for EVs and stuff, all these new factories being put up left and right by all kinds of car companies, and more stuff being built in the States here. It's really a huge thing we've seen here in the past few years, and it's great to see American manufacturing, I think, really is having a real resurgence, and it's really great. And yeah, I'm very happy to see all the perks that come with that. And Linda, thank you so much for being a member for 19 months now. I really appreciate all the support. She says, just curious, am I the only female member on the chat? Weird question, but I'm curious, and I'm also 75, but also find car discussions interesting. Thanks for joining in, and it's great to have you here. I think there's Brianna, and I don't know if there's any others here. According to the analytics, about 6% of my viewership is ladies out there, but it's obviously like most car stuff, heavily a male audience. But that's something I think I do have a larger female audience, even though it's not much. It's more than most more than most channels. A lot of other channels, when I talk to them about how many, because I'm always curious sometimes when it comes up, how many percentages people have as far as ladies out there on their channel, and it seems like it's mostly well under 5% for most car channels, which is a shame because again, with over 50% of car buying decisions being done by women and them influencing more than 50%, with all the married guys out there and stuff, it's really an important thing. That's why we do the interior reviews and why I really think that there should be even more female car reviewers out there than there already are. There are a good amount. I've been seeing more and more in the past few years that are really doing a great job, but I think there's a lot of room to replace a lot of us guys. And maybe that'll be the thing, is that maybe I'll drop out here sometime, in the future, and it'll make way for some new female creators to rise up in my place and, do some more great female reviews. I think that's definitely an underserved thing, even though, again, there's lots of great ones out there, but I think there could always be more. And thanks so much for the support all these months and almost 2 years as well, Linda. I really appreciate it. And you're never too old to like cars. I think there's lots of great, enthusiasts that, look at Jay Leno, is all the stuff he's doing, and he's getting up there as well. And he's still, young at heart, having a blast, driving crazy stuff every day. And has that passion. It's one of the great things that can bring people young and old all together. And let me see, we got about another 6 minutes or so here. So winding down, but Slam Sedan says Lucid gravity front end is aggressive, rear end is what in the Chrysler Pacifica? Yeah, I can see it a little bit. Honestly, it didn't occur to me, the Pacifica thing, until you mentioned it. But yeah, I think it looks pretty good. It's a little, I saw it in person when they revealed the gravity. It's a little jelly beanie. It's like kind of like they just stretched it a little bit too much. I feel like a smaller non-3-row Lucid SUV will look better and a little more impressive. But I think gravity still looks pretty good, all things considered, again, with the concessions they have to make for making it as long as a school bus and everything to fit everything they need to fit in it and stuff. I think they did a pretty good job on the styling. Although the light bar thing in the back is certainly something that's getting less and less unique with every new car that's been doing it, But I think most of them look pretty good. I see Nathaniel's comments there about Scotty as well. I won't get back into that, but Raphael says, I never thought manuals were bad in traffic. I got my first automatic in my late 30s and had no trouble before that. It definitely depends. And, everyone's different. Again, everyone has different tolerances and stuff. But, stop and go stuff, even myself, I don't enjoy driving stop and go with manuals, the inching up and the feathering the clutch. And, it's a lot of wear and tear on a manual, too. If you're not doing clean engagements all the time and you're really having to, inch up a lot. I think that's part of why the mini clutch started going on that. Because, it was like 63,000 miles or something. The clutches on those don't last forever. But I was doing a lot of stop and go commuting in those in that Mini, and I think that's part of why that clutch started to slip right before I got rid of it. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back, because that was like $3,000 to do a clutch job in a Mini. I'm like, this car is worth less than $10,000. I'm not putting $3,000 into a clutch. And that's when I dumped it while it was still drivable and reasonable to still operate. But it's a lot of wear and tear on a manual to be in stop and go. And Luke says, I enjoy the Car Care Nut channel. He's very knowledgeable. I don't actually know that one. I'll have to check that one out. Two says he's heading off. Thanks for joining in too and keeping us laughing here. He says, back to the radiator. And Trent Car Guy says, they told me the same thing on my Magnum. Granted, my Magnum has several times the mileage, about the lug nuts. Interesting. Zachary says, have you driven the new Ford Ranger yet? I'm wondering how it compares to the Chevy and the GMC. I have not. I was not invited to the Ranger event that happened this past week. So I am I will hopefully be getting a Ranger press vehicle. Thinking it'll be May. It might be after, but I'm hoping sometime in May to have a review on the Ranger. If you aren't in a hurry to run out and buy a mid-sized truck, if you want to hear my thoughts on it, May will probably be when that will be popping up on the channel. All things smoothly, but Ranger seems pretty promising. Seems like it's going to have one of the nicest interiors, most likely. Powertrains, that's a solid powertrain, as we've seen in the prior gen Ranger. Ranger Raptor is a surprisingly good bargain. Like, I thought it was going to be like way more expensive. And then I was like, whoa, like it's that cheap? Like I think they're gonna just like mop up the floor with anyone who wants a performance mid-sized truck. Like, I mean, just looking at the price tag, I mean, that's, that's the same price. I mean, there's Canyons that get over that. And it's like crazy that I thought it was going to be 10 grand more than it is. So Ranger Raptor, I think, is really going to be everywhere in short order, but regular Ranger, I think, should be solid too. And it's just great to finally see a new version instead of us getting the hand-me-down from, the other markets that was just kind of a half-hearted attempt, to rush a mid-sized truck over here with that, current gen, in my opinion. And Slam Sedan says, any thoughts on Daewoo as a first car? Whew, well, that's another gamble there. I don't think they've held up very well. I haven't seen a Daewoo in so long. It's fun watching. I think the Motor Week channel posted up a retro review on one a little while back, and that was amusing to watch. And two says, I think Matt missed the Edge joke, a Ford Edge. No, I gathered with the Ford thing there. Yep. Those Ford Edges. It's what got me with Lincoln. Thanks again too, and hope you have a good night and a good rest of your weekend here too. And Jordan, thank you so much for another super chat as well. He says, new car pitch, cinematic commercials or movie features. That would be cool. And I think BMW did that back in the day. They had little like short films that they did for like the E39 M5, I think E46 M3 possibly as well, and other things like that. And I think movie features is very effective, and I think BMW still does that. Like BMW's often featured in the Mission Impossible movies. Obviously, we've seen this with Dodge and Fast and Furious, Aston Martin with James Bond and stuff. So I think there is some of that for sure, and I think there should be more of that. I think it really works, especially on people like me that are suckers for that. But I think a lot of people, it gives you a great audience. It shows off what your car potentially could do. And it's just cool. I think cinematic commercials could be cool as well. And it's just, with commercials, it's really tough because, commercials are less, I mean, they've never really, I guess, been about art necessarily in a lot of ways, but, it's about trying to, whatever the pitch or the angle or whatever feature you're trying to push, I think you kind of have your hands tied with commercials a little bit more, but I think movie features is absolutely a great way to, get your vehicle hyped. And I think, it doesn't have to be a car chase or some crazy, action thing or something. It can just be, like, oh, look, like the nice family in this movie is driving a new Mazda CX-90. Like maybe people didn't see those on the road yet, or, just things like that, I think, I mean, there is a decent amount of that in Hollywood. That's, some more subtle than others. But I think there's way more opportunities where they just drive random cars or I'd love to someday, if I'm ever shopping around for new careers, just be like an advisor to movies too, of just, I mean, all of us could do this. You see a movie or a TV show and you see someone driving a car that's, not correct for the time period, or something that is just not, not accurate, an accurate portrayal of what that should be, just things like that. I'd love to be an advisor and be like, here's the cars you should have in your movie. Let's connect the dots with these companies and, get these cars and these movies and these TV shows. This would fit best, and try and, guide. Because I think, a lot of those people that, do set design and do, coordinations for that kind of stuff, unless you're a Fast and the Furious or something like that, it's not very, and even there, they make mistakes with, the car people that work on those things, either having their hands tied again by executives or whatever. But it's just, you can tell when, you see vehicles in movies and TV shows and there's no car person in sight to give them any kind of guidance to be like, you shouldn't have done that. There's so many of those things, at least that I pick up on. I'm sure you guys might do that as well. Car God said Volvo and Twilight. Yeah, and Twilight actually did stuff with Porsche too, back in the day too. So there's definitely been a lot of that, but I think there still could be more for sure. But yeah, it's another one. It's a great example, Car God. But we are over 2 hours here, so let me see any Slam Sedan says, love the basement comments for first-time viewers. I know it's definitely probably something that people are doing a double take on. Nathaniel says, wait, his wife was driving one and it failed. Yeah, like I said, it's an interesting read. I can't remember if it was Autoblog or who did the article, but if you just Google Fisker issues or owner complaints article or something like that. Hopefully you can land on the right article that I'm referencing. But I mean, man, it is quite a read to see all this stuff. I mean, it is like a 5-minute read of all the problems that they have. And Luke says, how have they been able to stay afloat just because of Nissan? No, the Nissan thing has just been recent. Fisker's been having, I mean, they've been able to stay afloat just with other investors. I don't know who's investing in them. People who like lighting cash on fire, I guess. But yes, they are, I don't know. I guess people are choosing it as write-offs. But yeah, people financed it, and it seems like the money's drying up, and that's why they're now having Nissan for a lifeline. We'll see if that works. But yeah, the way they're going, I don't see a great future for Fisker. Maybe they will figure it out. They have some promising concepts and ideas with the Pear and stuff and the Alaska truck, but I don't know if they'll ever get there. We'll see. Yeah, it was literally, yeah, Fisker's own wife. And there's other times, I mean, there was, I think someone, like, it's been so bad. Another fun thing I just remembered is like Fisker, someone was locked in their hot car, like in California, and they couldn't get out because the key wasn't working. Like the actual key fob wasn't being recognized by the car. And it wasn't, for some reason, it was like locking them in and they weren't able to get out of their vehicle. And they were like on the phone with support, like, we are in the car, like literally like trapped in the hot sun. We need help like now. And apparently they had to like call an engineer, and this engineer was like at a funeral, had to take a call mid-funeral to try and like, you know, figure out this emergency scenario. Like I mean, it's going to make for a great movie or TV show someday if someone ever, I mean, it's just like, it seems like it's one of those like wild stories behind the scenes right now. And again, maybe it'll make for a really crazy story in the future. I don't know, but like all kinds of nuts stuff is happening with them. So, I mean, they're working hard. I mean, their engineers are taking phone calls during funerals. So, I mean, they're giving their all. It's just, I don't know what they're, you know, if they don't have the resources or if we're not dealing with the A team here or what the deal is, I don't know. But it's just something's, yeah, they got a lot of hurdles right now. And Michelle, thanks for joining the tail end here. And just appreciate you stopping by and saying hi. And Luke says he has this crazy accident and got right back into it. I think we're talking about Scotty again. Gotcha. I never watched his video, so I don't know what's going on beyond the thumbnails and the titles. But anyway, Trent Car Guy says sometimes the commercials sell a car better than a product placement can. Yeah, I think there's certainly some of that. And he says, I still remember the Volkswagen commercial with the small Vader. Oh, yeah, that was a good one. I forgot about that one. And Linda says, yeah, being locked in would be a nightmare. I'd be freaked. Absolutely. I would never touch that car again. I'd like take it away on a tow truck. I'm never touching it again. I mean, even the Mach-E. I mean, I was a little iffy because there's been a few reports of those, again, knock on wood, of those like losing power. And I really, really like was debating like whether to bail on the Mach-E pre-order whenever we had it. Thankfully, it seemed like it was a very rare occurrence, and they, you know, had some recalls to address it and stuff. But I mean, the Mach-E was on thin ice, especially back whenever I could have flipped it and made money on it, which definitely isn't the case anymore. But back then I was like, if this thing ever once gives us any inkling of scaring us or being unreliable or something, it's gone. And I mean, even now, even being underwater on the, you know, lease thing that we have with them, you know, I don't want to lose money on it, but like if it turns out that for any reason it ends up being unreliable in the future, like it's gone. I am not going to have my family stranded, you know, in a car that I'm being a beta tester on. Like, absolutely not. So thankfully, again, it's been great. It's been over a year and a half. So I think, you know, hopefully it's going to be, you know, a solid Mach-E and, you know, not one of the buggy ones or anything, but, yeah, it's reliability is really important, especially if you, I mean, no one wants to be stuck in a car, but especially if you got a family or something, which the Fisker is a family vehicle. But let me see. So Michelle says, yeah, it's insane. Someone in my neighborhood has one. I'm curious how it's been for them now. Yes, you should go talk to them if you are an outgoing person and you want to bother them. Because I mean, yeah, you might have some good stories that come out of that conversation. I mean, I'm hoping, again, there's some good ones out there and some people are enjoying it. I obviously don't wish anyone to have a hard time in a car, but it just seems like the majority have a lot of issues. Luke's talking about Jay Leno as far as getting back into it there with his accent. Yeah, Jay's, he seems like he's so awesome. The few people I've, you know, known that know him or have hung out with him and done stuff with him, you know, it seems like he's just, you know, the real deal. Jay seems great. I'd love to meet him someday. It'd be so cool. Jordan, thank you so much for another super chat here. He says Ford, the EV future monopoly with, or what about Focus EV? I don't think Ford's going to have a monopoly. They might have a nice advantage if they beat everyone to the $25,000 electric vehicle, since that seems like that's something they're working very hard on very quickly here. I think that could certainly help them. And they're, early with the F-150, and they have the advantage of having the best-selling truck in America, and being able to make that electric really quickly was smart. But we're seeing that there's a limit to that, and though again, it just comes down to pricing. So I don't think they have a monopoly in the future. I think you're going to see there's a lot of other strong companies, and there will be competition and a lot of different choices out there for everyone. And I think Ford has some great products, but I think they also have their own fair share of issues and things holding them back as well. So but they make some good stuff. Obviously, we still are a Ford household here for now, even though again they are not great to work with and all that. But they make good stuff for the most part. So as long as that continues to be the case for the Bullet and the Mach-E, knock on wood, all the wood. As long as that continues to be the case, I think we will stick with our cars for a little while here. We'll see. Although I'm still contemplating cashing out on the Bullet's equity, getting something cheaper. We'll see. But anyway, so I'm going to have to sign off here. We're a little over time, but thank you all so much for joining in. I see Slamson Analyst says the Fisker Ronin looks like a sick new RX-7. It does look really cool. I think Ronin could be cool if they make it. So he says, you're a risker if you're in a Fisker. That is brilliant. That you should absolutely go and market that. That is absolutely true. But anyway, thank you all so much for joining in here, the live stream on this Saturday evening. Hope you have a great rest of your weekend here. Hope you have a great St. Patrick's Day and a great week here this next week. Stay tuned for that Santa Fe review and a slightly different review style, like I mentioned at the beginning of the live stream here on Tuesday, and more great stuff coming. I got a great lineup here this spring as well. So yeah, stay tuned for all that and more. Thank you all so much for your support and all that as well. And I'll see you guys on the next live stream. But thanks for watching. See you next Sunday, 9 p.m. like usual. Take care.